Carolinians are struggling because of it. As I thought about running, on Sundays I would sit in church, and I kept coming back to a passage in the book of Luke. To whom much is given, much is required. A lot has been given to me. A lot's been required. I thought about my life growing up in Eastern North Carolina, my public school teacher mom, my hardworking dad, my work on the farm every summer until I went to college, the amazing public school education that I got in Nash County, my Sunday school classes that I taught for decades, and most importantly, my wonderful wife and my 3 fantastic daughters. Boy, have I been blessed. And it was amazing to wake up every morning for years and lead the state that I love, both as Attorney General and your governor. I'm proud of what we accomplished together. Not only better jobs and more health care, but investments in teacher pay, child care, early childhood education, prosecuting violent criminals, taking on child predators, and keeping communities safe. And of course, after years of fighting for it, making health care more affordable for hundreds of thousands of working North Carolinians by expanding Medicaid. But now, a new challenge awaits. I'll take that same problem solving to Washington that I used here in North Carolina to focus on what matters. My opponent, who just won his primary tonight, is an out-of-touch DC insider and big oil lobbyist who's only looking out for himself and his well-connected friends in Washington. He has pushed schemes that raise healthcare costs, make communities less safe, and make life harder and more expensive for working families. How out of touch is Michael Whatley? While your costs go up, Michael Whatley says prices are down. When your local law enforcement needs more funding to make communities safe, Michael Whatley supports DOGE cuts that take money away from them. When you wish you could afford your health care premium, Michael Whatley celebrates a bill that makes it cost even more. It's dead wrong, and it's got to change. Let me tell you who I'll be. I'll be a strong, independent senator who will work with this president when I can.
Where we have vote from is from the other half of the district, and that is the Harris County portion. These are this is the suburban northern part of Harris County here. Okay, it's that you could kind of see it there. Toth is leading the early vote there. He's leading Crenshaw by 9 points in the early vote, sort of outside of his Montgomery County base. Okay, so I'll keep asking these questions about does the early vote, does the same day vote look different? I think you're Crenshaw. You really want this to look different now, or you want to be doing exceptionally well on Toth's, in Toth's base there. But Toth right now, that's an interesting number coming out of the Harris County portion.
Ooh, what you've dropped some interesting little breadcrumbs here, Steve Kornacki, that we're going to be sort of chasing around and following up on over the course of the night.
Steve, thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Sure.
We have just crossed now the 9 o'clock hour in the East. That means that most polls, not all, are closed across Texas. And we've got some of our first characterizations now from the NBC News decision desk. So let's pull them up here. Starting on the Republican side, Texas Senate. No surprise that at this point, you are seeing these early numbers in. And we're looking at where that stands with 34% of the vote in.
Yeah, that's right. And on the Democratic side in the Texas Senate race, it is too early to call. You see that Tellerico has a lead, but look, only 35.7% of the votes in. So we're going to watch that race, heated race, very closely.
We've also got a number of incumbents battling for their political lives tonight, including, of course, embattled Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez. Very, very small amount of vote count in so far, like 170 people have voted. Asterisk that, we'll come back to it.
Yeah, we'll keep watching that one. Incumbent Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw also facing a challenger fighting. We were just talking about this race, Steve Toth. Steve Toth has a narrow lead right now, 52.8%, but only 28.5% of the vote in, folks. So we've got a ways to go before we have a sense of who won that one.
On the Democratic side, in the race between two current Texas members of Congress, you've got, look at that, about 2/3 of the vote in. And interesting here, Christian Menefee leading Al Green. This is a race with some generational discussion around it, given Menefee 37 years old, Al Green in his 70s there. We're watching that one.
Yeah, one of those that was redistricted. Okay, and in North Carolina's 4th district, where another incumbent Democrat is facing a primary challenge, Valerie Foushee facing off against Nida Alam. 48.6% of the vote is in. Valerie Foushee, the incumbent, with a narrow lead right now. But again, folks, just 48.6% of the vote in. So this is one that we continue to watch very closely.
Going on,
the
crew?
Senate side, we've talked about this.
Won't be talking
Democrats in
much.
North Carolina, Roy Cooper, the projected winner as expected.
And NBC News is projecting that Republican Michael Whatley.
Hopefully you guys can hear me talking here as well. I won't be talking too much. I'm going to let it run, let it do its thing, and try to go in between this and CNN and try to find other outlets, but it's hard to find them. Let me get this speech up, and periodically I'll be joining you back with you. You guys have fun in the comment section. We're here. We're here.
Leadership has changed our country, and I am proud to stand with him in the fight to secure our border, to strengthen our economy, and put America first.
Michael Whatley speaking there. We also don't want to ignore our friends out in Arkansas, where it's primary night out there as well, and in the gubernatorial primary. No surprise here. NBC News projects that Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, of course, is the projected winner of that primary. Former, of course, White House press secretary Kristen, when you and I were running around that building.
That's right. We spent a lot of time in our office trying to get some scoops. And incumbent Republican Senator Tom Cotton is projected to win his Senate primary. No surprise there as well. NBC's Mel Zanona is in Dallas, Texas, with the view from Ken Paxton's campaign headquarters. NBC's Ryan Chandler is from James Tallarico's campaign headquarters, and Priscilla Thompson is at Jasmine Crockett's headquarters. Mel, you want to kick us off? What's the mood there right now?
Well, it's really starting to fill up here at the Paxton headquarters. And I do want to mention the split screen that is going on, because Paxton is here. He's holding an event tonight. He's got supporters in the room. There's going to be special guests. By contrast, Senator John Cornyn, the incumbent in this race, he's not holding an event tonight. He's just holding a media availability with reporters after we presumably get some of the results in later tonight. And the reason is because they acknowledge this is likely going to a runoff. They say there's nothing to celebrate just yet. But for Ken Paxton, the fact that he has made this race so close, given that John Cornyn is the incumbent, given that he has had GOP leadership backing, that is a huge feat for Ken Paxton. So they are starting to really soak in some of the early victory, but they too acknowledge there is a long way to go between now and May. And if this primary was already expensive and bruising and messy, it's probably only going to get worse in the months ahead.
Let me go to Priscilla Thompson now, who is on the Democratic side of the ledger there. And what's been interesting, and we've been following it really since we came on the air about an hour and change ago, is this issue with these polling sites, some confusion there. The Crockett campaign pretty fired up about this.
Yeah, very fired up. I'm calling it voter suppression, saying that they have been getting tons of emails and messages throughout the day about this. And this was supposed to be
Here
the
we
time
go
when they were
with voter
supposed to be
suppression.
looking at those early vote numbers and really focusing on the numbers that were coming out. But instead, they still have another hour here of trying to get the vote out. And so we saw her and Colin Allred hosting a presser earlier today, trying to get that word out. They've also been on social media, encouraging people to continue to go to the polls, make sure that they check online to see where their polling location is, and to stay in line as long as it takes in order to cast that ballot. But of course, they also have got to be looking at these numbers as they're starting to come up as well, even as they are still trying to turn out that vote for this next hour here.
All right, Priscilla, thank you for that. Ryan, let's go to you. You're at the Tallarico headquarters. He has been running as basically painting himself as someone who would be more electable in a general election, trying to make the case that he can drive out more independent, moderate voters against the argument from Jasmine Crockett that she's the fighter who's going to take on President Trump. How are they feeling right now as these results come in?
Well, if it gives you a sense, Kristen, every time the results from this race come up on the live stream behind us in this party, everybody cheers. People are feeling optimistic. here tonight. You're right. This is a race for them of a peacemaker, of a seminarian who took a break from that to run for Senate. They believe that he has much more broad appeal to put together a more diverse coalition, whether that means age, race, or indeed politics. I've been following Tallarico around from Dallas to Houston to Austin, and I think I've heard him say the words Donald Trump twice. And it is only to say to the crowd, if you voted for Donald Trump, you have a place in this campaign. We are seeing a lot of optimism because people think that message is resonating here tonight.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Ryan Chandler. Appreciate it. Stay with us. We'll come back to you early and often.
Ryan Nobles, Garrett Hake with us here with deference to you, our Capitol Hill correspondent. Let me go to you, our Texas native, because I think that's particularly relevant background in this
I was just
moment here.
listening to Ryan,
Yeah.
other Ryan, talk about Tallarico.
Better
and his-
looking.
Yeah, well, hey, look, I'm not waiting on that.
Relax, relax.
Talking about his outreach to Trump voters, and I can't help but think about the most famous Trump voter that he's already recruited, and that's Joe Rogan in Austin. I mean, that was
yeah.
kind of the kickoff moment for Tallarico as a statewide or as a national figure when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast a few months ago, and Rogan said he wanted to see Tallarico run for president. Rogan
yeah.
was such a key endorser of President Trump in that race. He cuts against sort of the typical political grain. He's more of a populist figure. And him kind of laying hands on James Tallarico, I think served as an invitation to a certain kind of, if not Republican voter, at least not a traditional Democratic voter, to take a closer look at James Tallarico. And so to hear him kind of continuing that message, I think is so central to his argument statewide.
Can I get philosophical for like a half a second here when it comes to like big
Let's do it.
picture themes, and like knock me down if you hate this, and Ryan, I'll go to you on this. But this idea of what kind of a fighter do Democrats
Yeah.
want right now?
Mhm.
And you
That's
heard
the
our
question.
correspondents on the,
Yep.
in the ground talk about this, and it really in kind of stark relief with Jasmine Crockett, with James Tallarico here. And I'm interested in what we're hearing from a different Democrat, Roy Cooper in North Carolina. Let me just go on this thread here, because he's talking about who he's fighting against. It's insiders, it's billionaires. This is the message that Tallarico has run on in large part in Texas, versus Crockett, who's taken it to Donald Trump. I mean, you heard her, right? President Trump. So who do Democrats need to be fighting against more, Ryan, philosophically here? Is it President Trump? Is it kind of the quote unquote establishment class, the billionaires, the elite, et cetera? Is this race, or are these races going to tell us a little bit about that?
Is it a cop out to say all of the above?
That's fair. That's
I
fair.
mean, I think that you've got to package a message that checks all of those boxes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think what you're seeing the most effective Democratic communicators do right now is take advantage of this class argument, which cuts across
Right.
party lines, which cuts across
Demographics. Yeah,
demographics,
that's right.
which cuts across generations, and put at the top of that class argument a guy named Donald Trump, a billionaire from New York City, who is the leader of that class,
Yeah.
and say, this is who I'm fighting for. I'm
Yeah.
fighting for you, not for Donald Trump and his Mar-a-Lago cronies, and hope that that message resonates enough in a way that fires up the base.
Yeah.
That isn't like, there's a lot of Democratic base voters, and I don't think we talk about this enough, who are sick about talking about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
It's the
they
fatigue
what they
factor.
want is for you to fix their health care premiums. They want
Yeah.
for you to bring down the cost of eggs.
Their electricity.
And right, and they don't
Yeah.
like Donald Trump. They're never going to vote for him. But for you to get them off the couch to vote for the person
That's what
running,
Abigail- What's this
I'm
face?
so
What is
eager
this
to
face
take the
you're
other
making?
side of this
All right,
philosophical
go.
argument
Okay,
because I
go,
actually
go.
disagree, and here's why.
Okay.
Donald Trump will never be on the ballot again,
Right.
ever. I mean, the Constitution says so. And so I think when you hear people trying to make a post-Donald Trump argument, I think you could say that that has more legs for the long-term future of the Democratic Party. Winning the argument against Donald Trump doesn't get you anywhere. When you talked about a class and a billionaire, I thought you were going somewhere different, Ryan. I thought you were going to say the Epstein class,
Well,
which is something you've seen a lot of Democrats start to do. They've tried to put a different framework around the kind of billionaire corruption that they see out there that I think kicks it past Donald Trump. But I'll say one other thought on this, and then I'll stop being philosophical, because you said we could only have a half second. The idea of what kind of fighter do you want to have?
Yeah.
A lot of professional political operatives talk about this. You cannot make policy until you win. Okay. Whatever else you think matters, you have to win the race first. And so, like, to fight Donald Trump sounds great, but you have to run to win the race that you are in before you can do anything about anything Donald Trump has done.
So let me ask you, and I do want to go back to Speaker McCarthy, but I want to get you
Still
all the
hanging
way.
out.
Still hanging out with us.
Once he
I
heard Ryan
wanna-
and I were here, he couldn't.
That's right. I want to get you on this point, which is that the State of the Union is so often a blueprint
Mhm.
for what Republicans, the party in power,
Yep.
should run on. And a lot of Republicans who I've spoken to, Garrett, feel like it was a little bit of a missed opportunity that they didn't hear from the president. Hey, I understand that the economy is not yet working for you. What are you hearing? And do you think that is a real concern for Republicans?
I think it's a concern for Republicans who aren't Donald Trump. Candidly, I think that's not something that's in Donald Trump's toolkit. Donald Trump is never the empathizer in chief. That's just not how he operates. I think the closest you got to hearing from that, hearing him say that during the State of the Union and hearing him say it in general, is to say, yeah, it's not as good because Joe Biden screwed it up. To essentially hang that on.
He's not the empathizer in chief. You're right about that, Garrett, but he is the salesman in chief.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
And I do think that the Republicans that I'm talking to are really frustrated because they stuck their necks out and voted for the big, beautiful bill. They're sticking their necks out, perhaps to take a tough vote on health care or not to extend the premium tax credits, for instance. And they don't have the man with the bully pulpit backing them up and taking that argument on the road and telling voters, hey, and nobody does it better than Donald Trump saying over and over again, something I did is great. And for some reason, he's not doing that with his agenda right now.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's get you in on this
Yes,
conversation here because it
please.
feels relevant to, I think, the perspective you may have here. As a Republican who wants to see Republicans win, get vulnerable with us here. Take us into your soul on this. What do you worry about more? Which message from Democrats do you worry about more when it comes to sort of this fighter piece of it?
I don't see a message from Democrats. They're still running against Donald Trump. Ask Kamala Harris how well that played. It won't play anymore. You complain about the State of the Union. If I was Democrats, I'd be very afraid that the country saw you not to stand up for a woman who had her young daughter murdered, or wouldn't stand up for making a decision to do I stand with Americans or do I stand with the illegals? These all will play come November. How the economy will play in November determines where the economy is at in November.
Yeah.
Now, you're the Republicans in the House. Don't look for somebody else to carry the weight, because when President Trump ran for re-election the first time and lost, and the Democrats got 82 million votes, you know how many Republicans in Congress lost re-election? 0. That hasn't happened since 1994. We beat 13 Democrats, okay? In the last 70 races in a presidential year for the Senate, 69 of those 70 states will vote exactly how they vote for president for the Senate. Only Maine was different with Collins. But President Trump won Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and the Republicans didn't, so they underperformed. Now President Trump wins this presidential election, but he wins it by the popular vote, which is very difficult for Republicans. And Republicans lost seats in the House. They underperformed. So the people who went and voted for Trump didn't vote for you too. So use the majority. Use the majority each and every day. When the Democrats shut down the House, you shouldn't have shut the House down well. You're in power. You determine what comes to the floor. We have lost more discharge petitions in 3 weeks than in 30 years. We are sitting at almost to break the record in 2018 for the most retirements. It's easier to pick a seat up when it's open than when you're running the incumbent. We have a money advantage for Republicans because we have President Trump. We have more money. The Democrats don't have much money. Their polling number is not great. And the same part, they don't have a leader making an agenda. So I wouldn't just, and remember, this isn't 2018 where you have 27 Republicans sitting in seats that the Democrat carried. There's only like 5 to 7 of those. So there's not a lot of seats in play because of redistricting. So money will only take you so far. Use your agenda. The race is not over yet. Focus on making sure turnout, but go after those independent voters as well.
So, Mr. Speaker, you're talking about the economy and where it's going to be. The president today acknowledged gas prices are up because of the war in Iran. To what extent does that concern you? They won't necessarily come down overnight. He said ultimately he thinks they will come down, but that was his big talking point, that gas prices had come
Gas
down.
and markets are things he loves to talk about, right?
Okay, gas prices will spike because what's happening in the Middle East, but it doesn't look like it's going to where it went to 120 or others, and that would be a small spike and come back down. There are things the administration can do with the SPRO and others so the gas prices don't even go up that high. They'll go up for a little while. The number one priority here is carry out this mission and be done with this mission. That's the important part, because if it's still going on in the election, that's a different outcome. The economy itself, we're having unbelievable investments, a lot based upon what President Trump has been able to do. The other thing you have to do is celebrate your victories. If you secured the border, has anyone gone down to the border and celebrated it? Did you go to these border cities that most of these mayors are Democrat elected but are so frustrated with the Democratic Party and show these streets how safe they are? Look what happened
This is the
in
point
Mexico
Ryan
2
Nobles was
weeks ago,
making
the
about being a
cartels taking
salesman
over.
in chief, right? About trying to sell the message
Yes.
and get in there for it.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, you're elected in your district. You're the best salesperson in your district for what you're voting on. If you're counting on somebody else to do your job, somebody else is going to get elected to your seat. I get concerned about those members who are sitting in seats where Trump won by 6 to 12 points because they haven't had a tough race. It's going to be a tougher race. I'm not concerned about the really swing seats. Those members, the Mike Lawlers, the Brian Fitzpatricks, they work each and every day. It's the ones that normally haven't had to work, and they're going to wake up in October and realize it's a little more competitive. And the turnout's not going to be the same in a presidential year. So when you redraw these lines and you're basing upon the presidential election, I don't think the Hispanic vote's going to be exactly the same because they turned out for President Trump. When they turned out for President Trump, the Republicans in the Senate and the House didn't do as well as the president. So you should work harder.
It is as though you have our producer in your ear, Mr. Speaker, because we're going to talk about that with Steve Kornacki next. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. If you can hang out, we'll talk. We'd love to have you back, but let us know if you got to run. We're not going to be mad. Steve Kornacki, let's talk about some of these. You heard it from Kevin McCarthy there. The Latino vote here, these Latino majority counties in Texas. You're watching that closely.
We are, yes. Although, if you'll permit me, we just got a big piece of real estate that what were we talking about on the Republican side the last time I came out with you guys? The biggest pro-Trump county in America, Montgomery County, 750,000 people live in this county. It produced the biggest plurality in America for Donald Trump in 2024. And I was really curious. This is north of Houston here, the Woodlands, if you know the area here. The Paxton folks, I think, were expecting big things out of this county. And boy, they didn't get them. This is the early vote in Montgomery County. And look at that, a 30-point margin here for Paxton over Cornyn. There's a ton of votes that come out of here. This is one of the most conservative, very active politically counties you're going to find anywhere. And you can see that energy behind Paxton coming out of that vote right there. Again, with the early vote, what that did to the statewide vote. Again, a lot of population centers. I think we have more vote, I think, sort of from the population centers than from the more rural parts of Texas here, which have been, I think, helping Cornyn's overall number. You know, you're seeing there Cornyn ahead by 3 points in the count right now. But that batch that Paxton just got out of Montgomery put a dent in that. And I think you can see in a lot of when you get away from the population centers, you see a little bit more for Paxton. So I think he's certainly got they'll add up. They're not going to be big individually, but they will add up. I just want to look, if you'll permit me, because we just got Montgomery. The last time I talked to you guys, that is so big to Dan Crenshaw trying to hang on. And if we got it in the Senate race, do we have it now in the House race? And what a build up for nothing, guys. We don't have we don't have Montgomery for the House race. We only have it for the Senate race. I wasn't sure. I was hoping for a big moment there. But anyway, that when we get that, which I think could be moments from now, I think we're going to know a lot about Dan Crenshaw and what's going on there.
All right, Steve, can you bring us up to speed on what's going on with James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett? Because that's obviously one of the big races that we're watching tonight.
Yes, and you had asked me about the Hispanic vote, and now I will answer your question because we are finally getting, I think we are getting what timing, you guys? Bexar County. This is San Antonio. This is 8% of all votes in the Democratic primary. When all is said and done, we just got the early vote out of Bexar County. So this is a very big one here. This gets to what you're talking about, certainly with Hispanic vote. Tallarico winning the early vote in Bexar County here, 56 to 42. Now, what's interesting is I've been looking at I've been talking about this on the live stream here, benchmarks that I've kind of had in these counties for these candidates. I think from what we'd seen elsewhere that that Tallarico perhaps wanted to be doing a little bit better or wants to be doing a little bit better than 56-42 in Bexar County. I think he wants to be in the 60s here. I think he wanted to be in the 60s here. We'll see as the same day vote comes in here if this number ticks up for him. But I think it's interesting because the bigger point I was about to make is that elsewhere south of San Antonio, we are starting to get some big counties here, okay? This is where Corpus Christi is. You see, what you're talking about here is small Black population, large Hispanic population, okay? And look, Tallarico, 25, 26 points ahead here around Corpus Christi, Brownsville, okay? 30 points there for Tallarico in the river. Here's a huge one, Webb County, where Laredo is, 34 points. These are all numbers in deep South Texas there that are very consistent with Tallarico winning the Hispanic vote, and I think winning it sizably. So that was one of the mysteries that we had in the polling coming into tonight, was what that Hispanic vote was going to look like in South Texas here, deep South Texas. I think we're getting a very clear look. Although, again, I will say I'm interested here based on what I've been seeing there. When I clicked on Bexar County, I was expecting to see a bigger number for Tallarico out of there. So overall, what that adds up to here, again, this is early vote that's been coming in. We're waiting to compare it to the same day. And I can't stress it enough, we don't have Dallas County, Crockett's home county here. But in the early vote, 7-point advantage for Tallarico right now.
I was just going to ask you, do we have a sense, obviously we don't have Dallas County yet, but any sense of how the African-American turnout has been? Obviously, Jasmine Crockett making the argument that she's the candidate to best turn out the African-American vote.
Yeah, I mean, again, so the counties that have sizable Black populations, where you would be looking, East Texas here, this thing, I gotta get this right here. So here you go. This is where Beaumont is. Jefferson County has the largest share of Black population of any county in Texas. There are no majority Black counties in Texas, but Jefferson County has the highest concentration of Black voters. And look at that. Crockett running at 80% here with, this is the early vote, but this is 2/3 of the vote. And again, this is expected, I think. I in fact have a benchmark written down here for Crockett. 80%. I think she needs to get 80% out of Jefferson County. She's running at 80% in the early vote right here. So let's see if that continues. But that's consistent with the candidate who is winning the Black vote by overwhelming margins.
So, Steve, we're about 36 minutes away from, obviously, the poll closed there in Dallas County and in that section of Texas there. I would never ask you to make a prediction on a crystal ball, but if you were looking at sort of the next big places where you're looking to see vote drop in either in Texas, what's the thing you keep refreshing? Bring us up there with you.
Yeah, look, I don't mean to take the easy way out on this, and I'm not refreshing as we know it's 10 o'clock, but it's Dallas because, this is, how many votes are coming out?
What about Harris?
What about Harris County?
Yeah, so we've got this is the early vote from Harris County here. Crockett leading this by 8 points. So yes, I think this is a county that Crockett needs to win. I think she needs to win this, county by several points. I think when we looked at this one going in, it looks sort of like a toss-up, like a swing county. I think this is one, if Tallarico is winning this, Tallarico is feeling great about where he is statewide. This is early vote. So yeah, what happens here? Now, the warning I got to give you on Harris County is they're notorious for giving you the early vote, and then the next day you get the same day, like 2 a.m. you get the same day vote. So let's see.
Okay, we will see. We're hanging out with you,
guys. We got Crenshaw. Do you want to see it?
Yes, go.
Let's go. Yes.
Do we ever?
Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. This is Montgomery County. The Woodlands.
Wow.
This is the early vote. Again, this is Toth's base. I apologize. I've been saying it wrong. I only read these names on paper sometimes. But look at this. A monster margin in the early vote over the incumbent. 28 points. This is Toth's base, Montgomery. This is Harris. The other half, he's also leading the early vote there. What that means is 60% of the vote is in this district, and it's a 7,500 vote margin, nearly a 20-point margin for Toth over Crenshaw. Would need to win the same day vote in the mother of all landslides if he's going to catch Toth at this point. Remember, Crenshaw, the only Republican without Trump's endorsement, incumbent in the House side in Texas, and starting to look like he needed it.
Steve Kornacki delivering the drama.
Wow, that is high drama. And Ryan, this goes back to your point about a purity test.
We
Dan
talked about it on the
Crenshaw,
Democratic side. But
yes, this is a purity test on the Republican side. Toth's been making the argument, no, I'm the MAGA candidate. Dan Crenshaw is someone who has, in some instances, Ukraine, for example, broken with President Trump.
And
Backed by Cruz, backed by the Freedom Caucus PAC, et cetera.
And you know what's interesting about the difference in the purity
Wow.
test on the Republican side versus the purity test on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
The Democratic side, it can be a little complicated. There's a lot of different issues and a lot of different boxes you need to check to win a Democratic purity test. There's only one on the Republican side, and that's whether or not Donald Trump likes you.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Dan Crenshaw has gotten sideways with Donald Trump. Ukraine might be one of the reasons. There's some other examples of him not necessarily towing the MAGA line. To be very clear, he toes the Republican Party line. I mean, Dan Crenshaw's voting record is as conservative as anybody's in Washington. But you cannot run sideways at Donald Trump. And watching what's happening here today in this race with Dan Crenshaw,
Yeah.
the first person I'm thinking of is Kentucky and Tom Massey. And I know that there is a very dedicated group of political operatives that are working
It's a great
to
point.
do this exact same thing that's happening to Dan Crenshaw, to Tom Massey in Kentucky. And Dan Crenshaw has a muted resistance to Donald Trump. It's one or two issues. Tom Massey's gone all in on opposing Trump. Could this be a bad sign for him going forward? I think that's what we see playing out right here.
Different dynamics in those races, but still super interesting when you look at this Crenshaw-Toth race. And Kristen's made the point about the non-endorsement, no endorsement from President Trump, the distinction there. You got to also look at both of these candidates. You know, Steve Toth, a familiar face on the cables. You know, Crenshaw is too, but these are people that get out there, deliver a message. You've got a sort of cable factor involved in all of it as well.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting if Crenshaw ends up losing this race because he really would be going out kind of the same way he came in. The same things that people liked about him when he first ran for office are now being used against him. He had this national security background. Obviously, he was a former Navy SEAL. He was thought of as kind of a straight shooter. Am I getting
That's the
muted?
music.
Am I getting- Can I call a state? What do we have?
We got to sneak in a super quick break, but I promise we're going to be right back. We've got Kornacki, we've got the table, we've got our
Garrett thinks his
political
wife.
pros, tons of people. Stay with us.
That's right.
And welcome back. While many eyes are on the marquee Senate primaries this evening, we are watching a ton of other races as well, with Representative Christian Menefee giving his colleague and fellow Democrat Representative Al Green his first competitive primary fight in years. Here you see with 67.6% of the vote in He has a narrow lead, Christian Menefee, over Al Green. This race won a test of redistricting, also a test of generations. Christian Menefee, 37, Al Green, 78. He's just shy of that 50% needed to avoid a runoff. But again, folks, we have not called this race
That's right.
yet. They're still counting the votes. And joining us now is one of those candidates, Congressman Christian Menefee. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. You were just sworn in last month. Take us inside this race, because Congressman Al Green has been laser focused on an anti-Trump message. He was even ejected from the State of the Union. What is your closing argument, Congressman?
I'm the only candidate in this race who has fought back against Donald Trump and actually won. During my time as county attorney for the third largest county in the country, I took the Trump administration to court multiple times and beat them. And I think what people are looking for in this moment is not symbolic fights, not cosmetic fights for the purpose of making noise, but fights that are really going to lead to a change in people's lives. When I beat the Trump administration, it was to protect healthcare programs right here in Harris County as our country becomes more and more unaffordable. So I'm excited. We're in a great position in this race, and I look forward to the rest of the results coming in.
Congressman, one of the other dynamics at play, is we don't have to tell you in your race, is this question of generational change, an argument that you've been making, obviously, and an argument that has some resonance here inside the Democratic Party writ large. Help us understand the case that you're trying to make to your district here.
What I've been talking about is how we need new and fresh strategies to fight back against the Trump administration and a Republican majority in Congress, which has ceded all of their power to the executive branch. And when I talk to people out in the street, that's exactly what they're saying, that they want the baton to be passed and that they're ready for new leadership that's going to take this district into the future. And so I look forward to continuing that fight. We've run an exclusively positive campaign focused on how I'm going to make life better for folks in the 18th Congressional District. And what's so incredible to me is I have never represented the vast majority of this district. I just got sworn in a few weeks ago. 60% of this district comes from Congressman Green's old district, yet we are still in first place, and I only have 3 weeks to my name in Congress. I think that's a testament to the work that we've done, to the hard campaign that we're running, and I look forward to the rest of the results coming in.
So then what do you say to the argument that your opponent is making, that experience matters here, that you got to be in the fight to take the fight to the White House?
The experience hasn't gotten as much. Despite all this experience that we've seen in Congress, the president is still launching an unsanctioned war on a foreign nation. Despite all this experience that we're supposedly seeing in Congress, America is still becoming more and more unaffordable while the president runs roughshod on our Constitution, on our laws, and on our norms. What we need is a new fight, creative strategies. And if the experience was so valuable, we would see the president being reined in, but we're not seeing that. And that's why people are ready to change directions.
You raise the war. Of course, we know that there is a partial government shutdown. A number of Republicans making the argument it's time to end that government shutdown, not funding DHS because of potential fights and threats here to the homeland. What do you make of that argument? Would you reopen and vote to fund DHS given the war in Iran and these potential for increased threats?
I would not. You don't get to violate the Constitution and then try to back your way into forcing funding of an agency that has terrorized people in our communities, including executing several people in the street in Minnesota. Congress needs to take back its power and do the thoughtful and appropriate thing, which is require that before the president of the United States can launch military strikes abroad, putting American troops at risk, and effectively declaring war on another nation, he must come to Congress and get permission. I think the argument that Republicans are making there is cowardly, and we should be focused on ensuring that the president is held accountable and is abiding by the Constitution.
Do you think
Go
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when you look at the numbers here, Congressman, and Christian mentioned them at the top of this discussion here, do you think you will be, if you in fact hold on to this lead, do you think you'll be able to avoid a runoff? What are your internals showing on where this goes tonight?
There is no crystal ball in politics. What I'll tell you is that I've heard from folks throughout our communities, and the responses have been fantastic. People are excited about the change, and I'm up against a 20-year incumbent. And I just got elected to Congress a few weeks ago, yet we are in first place. I think what you're clearly saying is things are moving in a different direction. It is my hope that we hit 50% tonight, but even if we don't, I think a message has been sent loud and clear that folks are ready for change.
Let me just ask you about the Senate race, if I could. A Democrat hasn't won a Senate seat in Texas for more than 3 decades, as you know, Congressman. Who do you think is the stronger candidate to win in a general election? James Tallarico or Jasmine Crockett? And do you think Democrats can actually do it?
Both James and Jasmine have different strengths that I think are going to put us in a fantastic position to flip the state of Texas. I know that that race is incredibly close right now. Both of them are dear friends, and I know that their heart is in the right place, and they will do everything they can to flip this state. My commitment is, regardless of who wins that race, I will be boots on the ground across the state of Texas, activating voters so that we can take it to John Cornyn, Ken Paxton, or whatever other crazy Republican comes out of that primary and flip this state.
A diplomatic response with your Democratic colleagues. Congressman, thank you. Appreciate you joining us. Let's bring in now a couple of folks who have been watching all of this along with us, who I know have some takes. I know they got some thoughts. Matt Gorman, former senior communications advisor to the Tim Scott presidential campaign. Ashley Etienne, former communications director to Vice President Harris. 2 longtime pros in the biz. Since we just finished with the Congressman, Ashley, I'll go to you first here. Talk us through what you're seeing in Texas on the Dem side. I know your group chat, I'm sure, is active at the moment. Tell us more.
Absolutely. I'm actually hearing from both James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett's campaign. And here's what I'm hearing is that Tallarico's hanging his Stetson hat on 2 things. One, that the gap, early vote gap, is so big and so broad that she can't make up the difference. The second is that Latino voters are overwhelmingly breaking his way, and she can't make up that gap. You know, in fact, one of his staffers said to me that they believe this thing will be over as soon as the polls close. What I'm hearing from Jasmine Crockett's campaign is they're up in Harris County. It's all about Harris County for them at this point. They believe that their voters are going to turn out today on election day. Overwhelmingly Black voters will come her way, and they think that that's going to be the winning solution for them.
And Matt, what are you seeing in these races? Obviously, we're watching the Senate race very closely. Senator Cornyn, Ken Paxton, Wesley Hunt. Seems like it's likely headed toward a runoff. Do you anticipate President Trump will endorse if that, in fact, does happen?
I think the name of the game then is the margin. What margin does Cornyn get that will cause Trump to maybe want to throw his hat behind him, or Ken Paxton? Ken Paxton that gets close, I could see that going the other way as well. I think one of the concerns Republicans had was they're used to being the only game in town. There's not used to being a Democratic primary that's pretty competitive. So there's, you know, a handful, say 65,000 or so self-described liberals to moderates or just Democrats that will vote in the open Texas primary on the Republican side. Those are likely more than half of them are going to go and vote in their own party's primary, the Democratic primary. Those are Cornyn's voters. And so if the electorate's more conservative than normal, that benefits Ken Paxton. So that's what they're worried about. But I will say, more cautious optimism than I think even Cornyn supporters expected tonight is what I'm getting.
That's super interesting. Talk us through, too, when you talk about, and I'll ask both of you, North Carolina here. We now know that race is locked in the general come November. Whatley v. Cooper here. One to watch on messaging, one to watch on enthusiasm. Matt, we'll start with you.
No, absolutely. And look, if this is competitive, the Texas Senate seat, and you're spending $100+ million, that's diverting resources from places like North Carolina, where look, Roy Cooper's a good, strong candidate. Michael Whatley's a good candidate, but a first-time candidate. So he's going to need a boost, especially with some money. That's also Susan Collins and Alaska, as Kevin McCarthy mentioned, but also Georgia, right? So Texas tonight affects places like North Carolina. But, you know, even as we start the dawn of March, we have our first general election matchup in the state of North Carolina here, Whatley v. Cooper.
Ashley, what do you see in North Carolina? I talk to Republicans. They say, sure, this is going to be competitive, but they think ultimately Whatley can pull it out because they are, as Matt's saying, going to divert resources.
I mean, here's the reality. I mean, Cooper's going to run on his record as a governor. He's an exceptional governor. He was able to sort of pull together a big, broad coalition, not just Democratic-based voters, but also Republican, disaffected Republicans. We've got a situation now where we've never seen before, where the American people, including those in North Carolina, are feeling down on this president's economic agenda, are feeling like the direction of the state and the country is not going in the right direction. So Cooper's got an incredible advantage. What I'm going to be watching is to see how he creates some distance between himself and the Democratic Party going forward.
Talk about, when we talk about North Carolina, Ashley, too, how you see this race we've been talking about. Valerie Fishie, Nita Alam, and this sort of progressive versus very progressive primary that could be super interesting here. She has the support of a lot of the Democratic establishment in North Carolina. Obviously, Nita Alam has the support of Bernie Sanders. Getting a quick gut check here. Thank you, control room. I was just about to ask, 73% of the vote in. And you can see, listen, Valerie Foushee right now has a lead. Obviously, we haven't even characterized this race yet, Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're seeing at play here is a growing sort of litmus test within the Democratic Party around Israel, Palestine. I think the war in Iran and the attacks in Iran are going to only amplify this. We saw this play out in the November election, where it was a sort of a drag on Kamala Harris's campaign. This is now a major issue within the Democratic Party. And it also breaks not just progressive, but it also breaks along race lines. I've seen it play out in against Jasmine Crockett. You've had Black pastors that have put op-eds in the New York Times about this particular issue, bashing Democrats. So this is really a new sort of dynamic for the Democratic Party. It's going to continue to define the identity of the Democratic Party. And I think a lot of incumbents who've taken AIPAC money are finding themselves in a tough spot. Let's not forget that there's, a sentiment going around the internet and social media where they're calling Hakeem Jeffries AIPAC Shakur. So this is really a problem, a thorn in the side of the Democratic Party right now, and they don't know how to address it.
Ashley, you take me to my next question, because Matt, weigh in on this from the Republican side, how you see the war in Iran impacting these midterms. Now, President Trump has said he expects it to go maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Okay. But
Or
it
longer,
has,
yeah.
or potentially longer. We're seeing divides in the MAGA base so far. And I think the question becomes about turnout. Could this potentially depress turnout in some of these critical races? We know President Trump's going to be out on the campaign trail. But if his voters aren't feeling energized, could that have an impact?
I saw a poll just before coming out here tonight that, it said the voters overwhelmingly, 77 or so percent, according to a CBS poll, if the war only lasts days or weeks, 77%. But it starts ticking down the longer it goes. And I think that's going to be key. And look, though, even a CNN poll today said, Republicans, conservatives, 77% also support that. So look, there's some loud folks, Marjorie Taylor Greene and others that are, again, it's more Israel-centric is their criticism, I think, more than the war. But the key is, how long does this last? Days, weeks? That's one thing. We're talking months. That's a different scenario.
But Kristen, we're already seeing in the state of Texas where Republican turnout is depressed. I mean, we're already seeing the impact of the president's policy play out right now in this primary in Texas. There's no reason why my home state of Texas, which has gone Republican for my entire lifetime practically, is having a depressed Republican turnout. I think it's because of the president's policies, but also you've got 50% more of the state that's saying that the state is headed in the wrong direction, that their finances aren't getting better, that they're getting worse. So the president is looming large in all of these races right now.
Still a long night ahead of us, at least for a little bit there in Texas. Ashley, Matt, hang around. I know you will. Thank you so much. We'll get back to you in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, great conversation. Coming up next, The View on the ground in the Middle East as the war with Iran, as we're talking about, escalates with sweeping implications at home and across the globe. You're watching an NBC News Now special coverage.
Welcome back to our special midterm night primary coverage here on NBC News Now. And when you talk about what's happening here at home, you've got to look at the backdrop of what's also happening overseas. Of course, days into now this war on Iran, with the State Department closing embassies in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Beirut after these drone attacks. We're also looking ahead to tomorrow morning when we expect to hear, of course, from top Trump administration officials. I want to bring in our NBC News chief international correspondent, Keir Simmons, who is with us now from Dubai, where there was a drone attack not far from the consulate earlier. Keir, good morning to you where you are.
Good morning to you from here in Dubai. I was listening to your conversation just before the break, Hallie, and just thinking that what happens next, seen from here, what happens next in these events, or the Iran war, as we'll now call it, is profoundly unpredictable. So the political implications are hard to predict because we don't know what's going to happen next. I will tell you, and you alluded to it there as you threw to me, that what we have seen is a series of attacks on US embassies and public offices, if you like, I guess you could call them that. So, you know, people know they saw the hit on the US embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Last night here in Dubai on the consulate, I went there to take a look. There have been smoke and fire engulfing one part of that building, crowds around. It looks like that building is kind of basically fine. I mean, I couldn't walk all the way around it, of course. We have reporting too that the CIA office in Riyadh was hit. That's from a Gulf senior official and also from a US official. And just think about that politically, Hallie. Attacks on embassies have resonated politically in the US in the past. You think about Benghazi, you think about how a crucial moment in the Iran story, the hostage crisis back in 1979 and 1980, a crisis that brought down President Carter. So this is a very, very tense part of the world right now, and it was ignited by the decision that President Trump made to launch that war on Iran, with Iran, and that is the moment at which he had the most decision-making power. Now, how long this lasts for, certainly the bombardment continues in Iran. The numbers dead there heading towards 1,000, much fewer dead here, including some American servicemen and women, of course. But one of the questions about how long it lasts will be about whether or not, I'll just tell you, I've been here for days. I live here, of course, and there have been booms and explosions and drones flying overhead night after night, day after day. It is calmer now, and it is extraordinary the way that the United Arab Emirates has been able to defend and intercept so many of those Iranian munitions. More than 90% have been taken down. But all you need is a black swan event for the Iranians to do something really politically, with real political ramifications, and things can shift.
Keir Simmons, live for us there in Dubai. Keir, we're so glad to have you. Thank you for that all-nighter. I know it's been sleepless for you ever since the start of these strikes Saturday morning. Thanks. We'll be right back with much more coverage of our 2026 midterm primaries right after this.
positive. So I also think about the longer term, even if we can't do it this time, which obviously everybody's going to do everything we can to win, it means longer term, we are building up the party and we're showing some electoral strength that we haven't really flexed that muscle in quite a while.
That's right. And also, I just want to say on the issues on Latino voters, one of the things and why Trump won Latino voters last time around is because he was talking things about the border. He was slamming Joe Biden about how our border was insecure. Cameron County and down there, they don't want an open border. They would like a secure border. That resonated with them, as well as his message on the economy. And so now that we have seen him shut the border down, we've also seen James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett talk about how they want border security. They want to make sure that, if they're in office, that they end up voting for more border security. At the same time, they want humanity. And some of the ICE raids and things that have happened in Minneapolis, people see that in Texas. And they're like, we don't want our friends and family deported, but we also don't want open borders. And I think that's also where Democrats are making inroads and starting to change their messaging, which I think will be interesting if that sticks going into 2028 and we see people fight it out in the Democratic primary, whether we try to go for those Latino voters like that.
One group that I think is really interesting here, Hispanic men, Black men.
Yeah.
Trump received double digits among Black men in Texas. Does the senator get those numbers? Does the congresswoman get those numbers? I'll be curious to see.
That's a good thing to watch. We'll obviously be taking it all in and continuing to watch these votes come in tonight and see if we get any projections in the next few moments. Up next, you have to see this. It was the Homeland Security Secretary testifying on Capitol Hill today. She was being grilled not just by Democrats, but also a Republican who said he thought her leadership was a disaster.
Newsnight with Abby Phillip, live next on CNN.
This is the true story of Alex. Recently promoted, he was earning more, but investing for the future, I definitely needed a plan. With his advisor, Dennis, Alex invested his savings into 3 accounts. One for now, one for later, and of course, his retirement. A plan in motion put the future
problems with the administration of their election today. We've been explaining that over the course of the night. I'm going to go right now to Evan Smith, who's the host of Overheard with Evan Smith on Austin PBS. He's a veteran observer of Texas politics, got 30 years experience doing that. And Evan, I'd like you to explain to us again what had happened earlier today in Dallas County, why things have been chaotic there, and now this new reporting about a judge's order about the extension of voting there.
Right. So as we talked about earlier, Rachel, the Republican Party in Dallas County decided they did not want to have countywide elections. They wanted to make people go to their assigned polling place locally. And if the Republicans say you can't have countywide, then the Democrats can't have countywide. So Democratic voters showed up thinking they were going to be able to vote at the places around the county they had voted, and they were turned away. And there was a big push to try to extend voting in Dallas County as a result of that, to give those people an opportunity to vote after all. A Dallas judge ordered the polls open until 9. Well, Attorney General Ken Paxton asked the Texas Supreme Court within the last couple of hours to overturn the Dallas judge's ruling. And according to reporting from my former colleague Eleanor Klibanoff of the Texas Tribune, the Texas Supreme Court has just temporarily blocked that judge's order to keep the polls open until 9, ordering the county to separate out the votes from people who were not in line at 7 o'clock. This throws a monkey wrench into the vote count in Dallas County. Whether those votes are going to count or not, we have no idea what's going to happen. It's a temporary ruling, but goodness, this is a mess, Rachel. It was already a mess. It's more of a mess now.
This is a pause of the vote extension in Dallas County. Are people being stopped from voting right now?
What I know is that the county is being told you have to take the votes that were cast in the last 2 hours. It's coming up upon that 9 o'clock hour central here in Texas right now. You have to take the votes that were cast by people who are not in line at 7 o'clock, push them to the side, and the fate and the status of those votes is now unknown. And of course, if you're Jasmine Crockett, you're thinking this is terrible for you because this is the county where you're going to hopefully roar back into contention in this race.
And this is as you said, it was a Dallas judge who ordered the extension of voting in Dallas County. And then it was U.S. Senate candidate and sitting Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who asked for an individual state Supreme Court judge to weigh in and essentially overturn that other judge's ruling?
Ask the Supreme Court of Texas if they would come in and temporarily block that Dallas judge's order, and the Supreme Court came back and said, yes, we temporarily block it.
Do we know, is it multiple judges on the Texas Supreme Court, or is it one judge's ruling?
I mean, I don't know whether it was one judge or multiple, but my sense is that the court institutionally, as opposed to one assigned justice individually, but that's something we'll determine here in the course of the report.
Yeah, this is crazy stuff. Evan Smith, keep talking to your sources and do what you can to help us understand this. I think we'll be coming back to you. I can tell you, for all the lawyers who are listening to you right now, who are going to understand what I'm about to tell you, this is from the Supreme Court of Texas. Orders pronounced. A stay is issued in the following petition for writ of mandamus in re State of Texas from Dallas County. The district court's order granting emergency petition to extend voting hours issued today in cause number styled Cardell Coleman in his capacity as Dallas County Democratic Party chair versus Paul Adams in his official capacity as Dallas County Elections Administrator in the 162nd District Court, Dallas County, Texas, is stayed, meaning the earlier ruling that was in place that extended Dallas County voting, that order is stayed. And then here's the money quote. Voting should occur only as permitted by Texas Election Code Section 41-032. Votes cast by voters who were not in line to vote at 7 p.m. local time should be separated. Note, the petition for writ of mandamus remains pending before this court. Chris Hayes, what do you make of this?
Well, I mean, at one level, it's pretty insane to have a candidate who's on the ballot being the litigant who gets to decide. I mean, he's the state's attorney general, but getting to weigh in. I don't know if there's a particular valence to those votes at that hour for him. I think it's mostly about the Democratic primary. It also feels a little bit to me like if the calculation of the Republican establishment is that Crockett's an easier candidate to beat, that this goes against that, but like he's just doing it for love of the game. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he's just super committed to making it hard for people to vote as just a deeply held view. And you know what I mean? Like
and making it hard to vote in Dallas.
Yeah,
so in a big purple/red state, you take the cities that are very blue and you say those places have terrible voting. Look what a mess.
And so there's not like 3D chess here. It just seems like I don't like the fact that they extended voting hours because there's confusion. I want them to take that back.
But Chris, the three-dimensional chess is tonight isn't that important. It's November. So as soon as they're starting to cause chaos and mistrust now, things are messy. When they're disastrous in November, it's like, well, we saw this coming.
Yeah, no, and that's an important thing to keep in mind, right? I mean, also this idea that you're going to segregate out these ballots based on who's online at 7 o'clock.
You can't.
And I generally just wanted to take a step back because we can get in the weeds here. There is no reason to think that there's any illegitimate or fake votes in the entire pool.
Yes.
There's no reason to think any of that.
No voter did anything wrong.
No one did anything wrong. There was confusion. So like you should always default to what will allow the most amount of actual legitimate voters to cast votes in an election. Again, whoever it is, whether that would benefit a Republican candidate or a Democratic candidate or the candidate you want or the candidate you don't, like just as a general principle. Yeah. And one of the things that's crazy about the world we live in, it is increasingly going to be the case that there are going to be places in which lower voter turnout would probably help Democrats and Republicans. And it's still the case that as a matter of principle, you should intervene on behalf of the maximal amount of voters being able to vote.
But doesn't this even hurt voter turnout in the fact that if these people are standing in line waiting to vote, at some point, a lot of them just say, forget about it. I got to go home. I got to feed my kids dinner. I got to feed the cat. At some point, people are like, it's not worth it.
They do, but I would bet that's a smaller percentage of the people standing in line, number one. Number two, again, Republicans using the boniest part of their head right now in looking at this are not understanding what they're doing. They're setting up Texas to flip in November because they are systematically pissing off the voters there at the end of the day. There are, as we've already indicated tonight, there are voters who are moving out of the Republican column to vote in the Democratic primary because they do not like what the Republicans are doing. There are more Republicans who are voting tonight in the Republican column who are looking at this, who are saying, well, why are you doing? First off, what does this have to do with the Republican primary? How does this impact Ken Paxton, right? There is no impact on Ken Paxton. To your point, Chris, this is a maximalist impact that they can bring to bear on what they want to label as corruption. To your point, It sets up the argument and the narrative that they want to put in place this November across the country.
Yes.
When
Yes.
that confusion
Yes.
sets in,
Exactly.
when voters are bemused and don't know, and they show up at the wrong polling place, see, we told you there was corruption, shut it down.
Well, in the narrative, I mean, let's be
Time to
specific about it, right? The narrative from Trump and the Republicans, from Trump in particular, from the Trump movement, is you can't trust votes that come from Democratic strongholds.
Yes.
So you can't trust votes from cities. You
right.
can't trust votes from places
Yes.
that have lots of people of color. So they're trying to make, I mean, it makes
Yes.
sense to fit the political narrative to try to make the Dallas votes, and I'm sure they hope the Houston votes or any other votes that fit that narrative seem as unknowable as possible so as to create a pretext for being able to exclude them from the totals from that state.
And if we go upstream causally, the whole reason we're here, right, is because the Dallas County GOP refused to co-sign a memorandum of understanding to allow countywide voting unless they had a demand for paper ballots, which again, like, has nothing to do with anything. There's no reason to think that they're better, right? That's a Donald Trump obsession. That's an election denier obsession. Like the whole causal chain that created the confusion that led to the necessity of opening the election earlier was the local Republican county party doing this.
And to that point, because it's really important to make that logistical point about what went wrong here. So now we've got this order from the Supreme Court of Texas that says, what's the remedy here? Well, we've paused the extension of the voting hours, and votes cast by voters who were not in line to vote at 7 p.m. local time should be separated. But is that feasible to do at one big county voting location in Dallas County? Probably not. Is it feasible to do at every individual precinct voting location in Dallas County? Because there is no central Dallas County voting location? Absolutely not. You're talking
Much
about
harder.
all of those locations, all needing to do this arcane, if not impossible.
And
thing.
what's important about what you just said is that I can assure you that election officials were not standing outside once they got the clearance to keep the polls open, right? They knew where, like, Jacob was there at that appointed hour. He was with the last person who was identified in the line at the appointed hour. They didn't do that at the original polling time because they got the clearance to extend it.
You don't know who's
so
online.
you don't know who's online.
Yeah, they didn't mark them with a chalk line.
Thank you. That's why this order is so boneheaded.
But their goal isn't that which is knowable. Their goal is an endless morass of
That's it.
litigation.
Right.
So the goal isn't to actually know who the person was
Right.
that was the last person online at 6:59.
You know, want to know what I want to know? I want to know what the Jasmine Crockett campaign thinks of what has just happened in Dallas County. Our colleague Eugene Daniels has just spoken to the Jasmine Crockett campaign. Eugene, what are they telling you?
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of officials in there, and there's, as you can imagine, an intense frustration with what just happened. They felt like they were finally going to get some answers out of Dallas County. They're talking to the lawyers and figuring out how to fight back was the language that both of those folks used when we spoke. What fight back looks like, we're not sure. I also talked to the Tallarico campaign, multiple folks over there, and they are supportive of whatever ends up of voters voting, right? They are not, the one person said to me, it's late night, so I feel like this is okay. Paxton sucks. That's bad. All voters should be able to vote. And I think we're going to hear from a lot of the Democrats in Texas, but you're going to hear from Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett, is that this is the shenanigans that they have been saying could happen in Texas. They didn't think it was going to happen so early. They thought it would happen as they got closer to November. But these are the warnings that they've been given. And on the first night of this big primary season that we're going to have, it's also possible telltale signs for the shenanigans that might happen in other states and other elections as we move forward.
Eugene, you said we're going to hear from Tallarico and hear from Crockett on this matter. Do you expect that we actually might see the candidates behind microphones and in front of cameras on this matter anytime soon?
I think that's probably more likely with Jasmine Crockett. I think Tallarico might kind of let it play out. The team, someone told me the team is still trying to figure out what the best way to operate in this is. They haven't done this kind of and dealt with this kind of thing before. I think it's more likely Jasmine Crockett gets out front because this will impact her. We've been saying all night that Dallas is where her biggest numbers are going to come from. If she is going to win, she's going to have to overperform in Dallas. And so it is incumbent upon her and her team to get out in front and say what her team is saying to me right now on background.
Yeah. And again, let's just bottom line this here, that this is the chaos that was created in Dallas County was created because the Dallas County Republican Party refused to do what they have done in previous election years and what almost every other county in the state has done, which is allow for everybody voting in that county to vote anywhere in that county, which makes for very simple election administration compared to what they've ended up with in Dallas County, which is that people need to vote in their individual precincts, something that hadn't been done in previous elections in that county and that people didn't know to expect. It created a lot of confusion, and that is what brought about that judicial order that extended voting in Dallas. Again, that extension has been paused after a request to the Texas Supreme Court from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. This is still ongoing at this point. Ali, can we go to you right now just in terms of talking about the stakes right now, what we're seeing in terms of the statewide race in Texas?
Nicole talked about endless morass of litigation. That could be Ken Paxton's tagline, right? That's
are crucial to Crockett. So what kind of margin are we talking about that Tallarico would have to bank that would make whatever vote count doesn't necessarily, is contested in some way, shape, or form because of this court battle? How big of a margin would he have to go in where ultimately that wouldn't matter? I mean, the votes will get counted at some point or not counted, but is there a margin in which he would feel comfortable enough that he wouldn't have to worry about that outstanding vote that's being haggled over in court?
Yeah, you know what? In fact, we can, Adam. What's the current expected vote out of Dallas County? Because I can give you, if you'll bear with me here for 30 seconds, we can get you a number here.
Steve, I'm going to jump in because I want to get, there's some court action that's happened in literally the last couple of minutes here. And I want to get to our team on the ground now in Texas because it is essentially now not clear whether the votes cast after the original poll close time are going to count. Let me go to Tallarico headquarters. Ryan Chandler is there. Priscilla Thompson is at Crockett headquarters as well in Dallas. And Priscilla, let me start with you here. Walk us through what's at play, what's happening, because this is to the point that we're making here. Again, this is all within just the last couple of minutes. This is developing into a situation there around Dallas County.
Yeah, it definitely is. So obviously we know that judge had ruled that polls could stay open until 9 p.m. local time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. And then Attorney General Ken Paxton sought to block that in the Texas Supreme Court. And the Texas Supreme Court did ultimately issue a stay saying that those votes that were cast after 7 p.m. local time needed to be separated out. So blocking that those polls would stay open. Now I'm talking to the campaign and they say that they are fighting back on this. But I will tell you, in the last hours, those early votes were coming in. They said that they were feeling good, but that Dallas County was going to be the thing that would put them over the edge. They are banking on Dallas County. And so I asked them, what does this mean in terms of the chaos that it could cause around trying to count this vote and look at these results? And they said that, quote, it's definitely a concern. So they are very worried about this right now and what they're seeing in Dallas County and what exactly this means for them. Because, of course, they had been looking at the turnout here and just saying that it was off the charts, amazing. This is her home turf, and this was going to be the county to help her bring over that victory tonight. That is what she told me. And now you have this confusion, and we don't even know what those results are going to look like coming out and how prolonged this court battle could ultimately end up being, because they said that they are definitely fighting this.
Priscilla, what's the mood there given this development? I know it's loud there, but are people reacting?
You know, I will tell you that the screens are not up in here where people are able to see what is happening with the vote. And so the mood in here is great. The energy is great. People have been coming over to my laptop to try to look at the results and to try to understand what is actually happening. So I don't think it's very clear to people in here what exactly is going on. But what I'm hearing from folks is confidence that once those big city numbers start coming in, as someone just told me, Texas is rural. So it may look like Tallarico right now has the lead, but they are waiting to see more of those big city vote counts. And of course, Dallas County, which now is sort of in limbo.
Yeah, big question mark on that. With that, then, Ryan Chandler, we'll go to you at Tallarico headquarters with a vibe check there.
You hear the screams. They're becoming more and more frequent here. I heard from somebody with the campaign. They are confident in victory tonight. Of course, Dallas is such a huge question. Something like 1 in 3 votes could come from there by the end of the night, or it could potentially go into tomorrow. We don't know. But look, regardless of what's happening in Dallas, Tallarico is feeling good. They feel confident mostly because, and I don't want to step on Kornacki's toes here, but I'm looking at counties like Cameron. You hear screams because of counties like this down in the valley. This is a significant slice of that all-important Latino vote that we were hearing Chuck talk about. Tallarico is up down in the valley in Cameron County, 30 points. Those are the kinds of margins that make this campaign confident. They're in a good position regardless of what happens in Crockett's home turf.
Well, and are the folks there concerned, though, that what is happening in Crockett's home turf could lead to a legal challenge to whatever the results might be?
Oh, certainly. Also because this is a similar situation also played out earlier to a lesser degree in Tallarico's home turf of county just north of here where he started his political career. I just want to make sure everybody understands the drama that we're seeing play out in Dallas right now. It's something I've never seen before. You have an unknown number of voters who were turned away and maybe came to vote after what was originally the deadline in those extra 2 hours. You also have the Attorney General, who, by the way, is also on the ballot, who is in Dallas County tonight asking the Supreme Court to put all of those untold number of votes aside. This has the potential to turn very messy. And if I were the Crockett campaign, I would be demanding a quick resolution so we figure out where those votes went.
Ryan Chandler, live for us there at Tallarico headquarters. Ryan, thank you.
Well, and I think Ryan captured it as we turn to our friends here at the table. Garrett, you are talking about a lot of votes that could potentially be in question and the messiness of it, right? I mean, right now there's a big question mark over how this is going to get resolved, when or if. What do you make of that development?
Well, look, I think it is enormously messy. I think in sort of the small scale political messiness is a problem for Jasmine Crockett tonight. But large scale, by the way, I think it's a warning for all of us in November. You've got a whole country that's going to have new districts this year, a lot of new rules, a lot of new legal frameworks for voting all around the country, a president and a party that is obsessed with the idea of election security. And here you see, I think, also the impact potentially of a Republican Attorney General here in Ken Paxton, who is also on the ballot, who also still wants Donald Trump's endorsement, involving himself in a heavily Democratic county on an election night. So there are a number of factors in play here, both sort of like, again, the small term impact on this Tallarico Crockett race, and I think sort of larger term warning signs and a reminder for people of all the sort of things you have to watch out for in this coming election.
I just want to ask our control room. We just saw a shot of Jasmine Crockett speaking, I think, at her headquarters. I don't know if that was live. We're going to work on that in just a second. But Ryan Nobles, wait, I think I hear it. Let's listen in for just a second here, because obviously this Dallas development is critical to her campaign.
And so once there was a court order saying you had until 9, I'm sure that there were people that joined the line after 7. They now are telling them that you have to separate the votes out. What this means is that we will not know what votes are to be tallied from Election Day out of Dallas County. For sure, we won't know that tonight. So knowing that Dallas County is a big dump of votes, we, in my opinion, will not know the election results overall tonight. We need to see the Dallas County votes to see where they are. I mean, if the early vote comes in, which we may have the early vote soon, if it comes in and I'm losing Dallas County, then we know kind of where this thing is going. So, so that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do. And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why. So I want you to enjoy yourselves, but I won't be back tonight because I have no idea of when we're going to get results, and I fully anticipate it won't be until tomorrow. So I love y'all too. Thank you so very much for being here.
That was extraordinary.
Dramatic out of developments here out of Dallas County for Jasmine Crockett. And I want to get straight to Steve Kornacki on this because, Steve, I think the question now, and you heard her lay this out, she says, if we don't have the results in Dallas where she's expected to do fairly well, a stronghold for her, we don't have the votes for tonight. So let me ask you, I don't know if we know, will the vote in Dallas make enough of a difference at this point in the race?
We just got the vote from Dallas. Now, we don't know if this is that whole issue of the 2-hour window you're talking about. So I want to say that, before I show you this, but we did get a substantial amount of vote in Dallas. This is the early vote. So I don't know what's going to happen in Dallas County after this, but this is the early vote. This is the vote cast before Election Day. Okay, about 60%, and give or take of what the total will be. Crockett winning this by 22 points here. Now, that is a difference of 43,000 votes over Tallarico. What that does statewide, you can see that Tallarico number back down to 70,000. It had crept there up, over 110,000. In fact, she just gathered some more votes somewhere else, and it ticked down a little. But you see it brought it down to 70,000. But it is still a 70,000 vote advantage statewide for Tallarico. And that early vote out of Dallas is, we think, well over half the total vote. Whatever it ends up being, we think it's well over than half. She was able to net 43,000 plurality with well over half of it, and she still trails statewide by 70,000 votes. So even if the rest of the vote in Dallas County came in and looked just like that, she would still be well short here of that margin that Tallarico has built. I want to say I've been, our audience on streaming tonight, we have been showing benchmarks for these candidates as the counties have come in. Are they hitting the numbers they need to hit? The number we had established in Dallas County for Jasmine Crockett was 70%. This is 61%. This is her home county. This is her base here. This is where she needs to drive up the number. So in the early vote here, she's short of that. Now, again, did she have a flood of support same day? Were there ballots cast between 8 and 10 o'clock that there are some issues here that are above my pay grade to address. But the early vote here, I think for Crockett is 61%. She wants to be near 70 here, not near 60. And meanwhile, what we've seen happen statewide, again, we were saying this, while we sort of focus on Dallas for Crockett, we have been watching Tallarico in different corners of the state start to pad this plurality. So I think the last time I was on with you, he brought El Paso in. I'm not sure if you had seen, but Hidalgo County came in. We knew this was going to be big for Tallarico the way South Texas was going. This is where McAllen is, and it was big for Tallarico. Another giant one that we're waiting on that I think is going to be massive for Tallarico is Williamson County. This right outside Austin. Again, it's the heart of his political base. So you saw Crockett put a dent in it with Dallas's vote. We think that's more than half the vote out of Dallas County. It leaves Tallarico ahead by 70 with opportunities across this map to build on that 70. And that leaves whatever's left in Dallas. And again, there's a question here of what's left in Dallas, but whatever it is, it does not appear that there's enough there, to be putting a dent in this. She would need something from somewhere else to give her the extra. She would need a big flood of same-day support somewhere else. It's not just going to come from Dallas.
All right. Well, it could be a long night / few days as we continue to track that. Steve Kornacki, thank you.
I know you'll yell early and often if anything's
Yes,
interesting on that. I want to sneak in very quickly to the conversation, Ryan Nobles.
Well, that was a question I asked Steve before we heard from Jasmine Crockett. I mean, to me, it was all about the math, right?
Yeah.
And listen, every vote should be counted. I think they should go through the legal process and figure it out. But I think we can practically say that there probably are not 75,000 people that voted in Dallas County in the last 2 hours that is an open question right now. And so I think the question for Jasmine Crockett now is the Democrats are heading toward a situation right now where every single Republican I've talked to tonight says that the Paxton-Cornyn race is going to a runoff. Every single Republican believes that. And so the Democrats are in a position where they could anoint their nominee tonight and hit the ground running. Is Jasmine Crockett going to put the Democrats in a situation where, and she kind of alluded to this, to her credit, that, maybe there isn't the votes there, but the Democrats would love to have a unity rally tomorrow and kick off their campaign. If this is an open question and they're waiting for the legal challenges to kind of play out, that could delay that process.
And Ryan, I think you raise such a fascinating point, which is what we actually heard from her, Gary.
Right.
Her tone.
Yeah, that was not the tone of someone who sounded like they think they're going to come roaring back and win this race. I mean, there was, having covered 1 million of
Yes.
these rallies over the course of our careers, I think we all feel this way. You can sort of tell what a candidate is feeling, and nothing in what we heard from her suggested that this is the start of a comeback, nor did I hear her say, if you're still in line, stay in line, which is what you want to tell your folks if you think all those votes are going to still count. And that is the question right now, based on our reporting, NBC News is reporting that the votes that are being separated are for people who were not in line at 7. If you were in line at 7 when the polls closed in Texas, you could stay in line and vote. That is always the case. That was still the case here in Dallas County. I just didn't hear that rally the troops moment from her. At a time where if you really think you're still in this fight, it could matter still.
But a credit to her. She, her people came out. These were people that we heard went to one polling location and were turned away. She doesn't want to disenfranchise them. She wants them to know that their voices should be heard. But there's a calculation here and a process that's got to play out. And the Democrats would like to have it resolved sooner rather than
Well, fascinating to hear from her, and I wonder if and when we will hear from James Tallarico.
And for sure, we'll take that if we do. And just a note too on logistics here. It's our understanding that now anybody that was, to your point about 7 o'clock Dallas time, regular ballot if you're in line, provisional ballot after that. So there is going to be that process moving forward, which Phil Prazin, politics reporter at our Dallas-Fort Worth station, anchor of Lone Star Politics, knows. Our friend over there in Texas, Phil. Man, did you imagine something like this going down? What are you hearing? Walk us through this moment. Help us put it into some context.
So it's definitely adding some drama to the night for sure. So, I mean, the gist of it is Texas state law is pretty strict. You have 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You have to be in line by 7 p.m. In order to vote. And there's not that many exceptions to that. So, if there's a emergency declaration, if there's severe weather, if there's a power outage, the law is pretty strict. So earlier when a local district judge here in Dallas County, Judge Stacey Williams, said there was so much confusion because of the new precinct voting system that it shut down the website of the county election site, that may not qualify as
My moderate to severe Crohn's symptoms kept me out of the picture. Now I have Sky.
At least 9 so far.
I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved.
He wanted
race for the U.S. nomination on the Democratic side for Senate is close. That legal fight is going to be very, very important, and it may not be over tonight.
Well, Phil, it's fascinating to hear that you're getting all of these calls and complaints into your station. I mean, that really sets the stage for just how dramatic this development is. We have anticipated that the Republican race would go to a runoff, seems poised to do exactly that. What do you make of the results that we're witnessing on both sides so far, understanding that neither race has been called yet?
Well, on the Republican side, a lot of political onlookers have been very surprised at the strong showing of John Cornyn. And, we have to remind ourselves about this again and again, that John Cornyn is the best vote getter in Texas history. Over the years, more people have voted for John Cornyn than anybody else in Texas history, from a district judge in the 1980s to the Texas Attorney General, Supreme Court, to 4 terms as U.S. Senator. He is an election juggernaut when that machine gets rolling. And look, $71 million can only help his case. So he's the surprise tonight. A lot of people in the Republican, political establishment thought that Ken Paxton was going to come out early, ahead, and stay ahead. That doesn't look like the case. That doesn't look like the case.
But I mean, the runoff factor and the runoff potential there, Phil, our Texas native Garrett Haig pointed out, when the runoff is May 26th, that's, it's a Tuesday, end of spring, early summer. What does turnout look like? What does the energy look like? What does the dynamism look like? And what does a Trump endorsement factor look like, depending on, to your point, if Cornyn can kind of have some momentum here or not?
I think that's a very important point. You know, does a #1 finish tonight by Senator John Cornyn, is that enough to convince President Trump to endorse him over Ken Paxton? Remember, he said he likes all three of them, but you know also that the president wants to endorse the person who's eventually going to win. So if he's the #1 vote getter tonight, that's a strong argument from his side.
Well, and Phil, let me just ask you, because Democrats are obviously eyeing this seat. They have assessed that Ken Paxton would be the easier candidate to beat. They think for all the reasons you just laid out, Senator John Cornyn would be tough to beat in a general election. Democrats have been eyeing Texas for decades. You're there on the ground. Do you get the sense that the dynamics are such that this could in fact be a competitive general election race?
Yes, and actually just 2 days ago, there's a North Texas political analyst, from Ross Hunt from Hunt Research and Data, has said that this is a code red for Republicans, actually, because some of the independents, some of the Republican-leaning voters that would have and usually vote in the Republican primary, because usually that's the whole show. But now that there's a competitive race, he has seen that the majority of those independent voters are now voting in the Democratic primary, likely for Tallarico, according to him. But that also shows that that is going to be a swing group, that independent voters, that Tallarico, at least theoretically, it's possible for him to move those independent voters from Republicans to Democrats. And we saw that locally here in Tarrant County in a pretty surprising local Senate race, Texas Senate District 9. It was a Trump district by 14 points. The local Senate Democrat won that race by 17 points. It was an incredible swing. So a lot of Democrats are saying if they can do that in Tarrant County, the swingiest county in the biggest media market, they believe they can do that statewide with Tallarico. However, Texas is still a Republican state until proven otherwise. We have seen the Democratic hopes rise and fall time and time again here in Texas. So at least I won't believe it until I see it.
We got 8 months to hash that out, Phil. We're very glad to have you. Thank you so much for your expertise there on the ground in Texas.
Great,
it's great
to see you.
How great is it to have a local voice
It's
to talk
great.
to us about this?
I get to visit with Phil once a week when I do my affiliate hits, so it's great to have him join us
That's a Meet the Press
tonight.
moderator flex right there.
But Garrett, I thought he raised such an important point, which is Senator Cornyn's ability to energize, to get votes, that this is what he's good at. Closing.
Ground game, right? I mean, that's
close.
Infrastructure, familiarity with Texas voters, all of it. He has all of it. And that's been the argument that he's been making on the trail, that he is the safe bet to continue to win Texas, perhaps by a double-digit margin, as he's done time and time again. The argument that he's making publicly is very similar to the argument he and his supporters have been making to the White House, which is that we are the safe bet here. We are Cornyn is the person with no surprises. And if you get Cornyn on the ballot, Texas will behave like Texas. If you get Paxton on the ballot, who knows what else might come out over the course of the summer? And who knows how appealing that James Tallarico message might be to people who consider themselves Republicans or more conservative. They voted that way their whole lives, but they just don't want to be part of Ken Paxton's particular brand of Republicanism. So I think, to me, that's a huge factor. The idea that, Cornyn is leading now, and obviously the vote totals can change over the course of the night. When I've talked to Republican operatives and people very close to the White House today, that has not been their expectation. Interestingly enough, even Cornyn's big supporters and the operatives who are working with him thought he was going to come in a close second tonight. If Cornyn somehow defies those expectations and ends up, leading tonight going into a primary runoff, that positions him very well sort of narratively and makes his case for the Trump endorsement even stronger than I think it already is.
I don't think they'd be surprised that it's going to run off. I think that was going to be the expectation from the orbits there.
I literally did not talk to anybody in the past 2 weeks who had John Cornyn ahead going into a runoff. Almost everybody thought that Cornyn would make it to a runoff, but I don't think anybody thought that he'd be ahead in the runoff. I mean, every single Cornyn adjacent person that I talked to said they were hoping he could keep it within 5 points. That was the metric that they needed to go to the White House and say, look, he's within striking distance. You can put him over the top. But to Garrett's point, Trump doesn't want an argument about pushing somebody over the top. He wants to grab somebody who's already at the top. So if you can now go to him and say,
well, we've got a call to
"I've already
make on
done it."
this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but obviously one of the ones we were waiting on here. Texas is going to a runoff according to our NBC News projection here. So to the point that we're making around the table here with Ryan and Garrett, you see we've got about 57% of the vote in. And Senator John Cornyn, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton will be advancing, which means this thing's going till the end of May, folks. That's how this is going to go down. This is, I don't think, a surprise for anybody involved. I will say in some of my conversations with both campaigns, I asked a little bit about Democrats. Are you even thinking about what that Democratic race would look like? And I think the focus on a potential runoff, and here we are having
Waiting on more stuff from Dallas. We're waiting from Williamson County, which has reported 0 votes at the moment. 2 precincts are staying open until 11 p.m. Eastern there, so we won't get that for a while. That's north of Austin. We're expecting Talarico to do well there. And El Paso County, we have now got 60%, 59% of the vote in, and Talarico is winning that 62 to 35. But a lot of vote missing in Texas right now.
Okay. Ali, thank you for breaking that down for us. Simone Sanders Townsend, you have been all over this in terms of anticipating some of these problems in these specific counties. What do you understand about the way this has played out over the course of the night and the reaction to what's happened with the Texas courts?
So I talked to a number of people on the ground from the Texas Democratic Party because, again, the parties are the administrators of the elections in a primary. This does not apply for the general. So in the general, the state is in charge of the election. So if people think, oh, are we going to have this particular issue come November? No, could be a different issue, but not this one. Lawrence and I were chatting in the green room, and he said, does this also affect the Republicans? I thought it was a very good question. I asked the chair of the Texas Democratic Party, and the chair said it is their understanding that the judge's order is specific to the Democratic primary because, again, they didn't do a joint primary. So it is only the Democratic votes in Dallas County. The particular law that is being cited, Texas Democrats at large, they, if we look at the lawsuit that was filed by the Dallas County Democrats, not the Texas Democratic Party. I say that because there are factions within the Texas Democratic Party that say, Texas law is very, very
here. We don't have any of the vote. This is true on the Democratic side and on the Republican side. I think he's going to do very well in this county, Williamson County, right outside of Austin. So that could certainly help him there in the statewide category. But look, around in the immediate metroplex there, Dallas, Fort Worth, you could see advantages for Cornyn, but also north of Dallas here in the early vote, Collin, and then up here in Denton, advantages here. It wasn't as clear he'd have an advantage here. And even getting sort of this Texoma region here right along the border. These are small here, but I think I was a little surprised to me when I saw the early vote coming in Grayson County and I saw Cornyn ahead here. I thought when you got out to the fringes of the Metroplex, it might not hold up as well. Additionally, the fact that here in Harris County, it's essentially a tie right now. I think maybe a bit of a surprise here. Paxton actually had done very well in Harris County when he was challenged by George P. Bush from the Bush family with deep ancestral ties to Harris County. It's where it's where George H.W. Bush launched his political career. Paxton had run very well there in his 2022 runoff against George P. Bush, but Cornyn holding his own in Harris County. He got blown out, as we said, as we kind of thought might happen here. Cornyn did north of there in Montgomery County, but he's not getting blown out in Fort Bend County. These are giant suburbs south of Houston. You know, we're getting same day. You know, it's close here. So he's not, you know, outside of this is the only big giant Paxton blowout I've seen in sort of a population center tonight. I think there was a sense that there'd be more of these, maybe not 30 points, but more double-digit Paxton places than we're seeing right now.
How about Collin County, Paxton, home county up there north of Dallas? You know, obviously that's another fast-growing part of the Metroplex there, and a place I would think Paxton has to do well.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, so this is what you find in the Metroplex in Republican politics is you find the Republican electorate, I think there's a higher concentration than elsewhere. It's a little more affluent, a little more college educated. It's a little more culturally moderate. So I think, you know, these were places that were musts for Cornyn coming into tonight. But they've been so far they've been delivering for him. Again, we talked about it immediately in Dallas and Fort Worth, but this is when you get north of Dallas and you're, Collin, Denton counties here, north of Dallas, you get into a lot of those kind of well-to-do suburbs, and, Cornyn is doing quite well there. Still some vote to come in, but enough that as we reset statewide, he's got an advantage there of almost 3 points.
Steve, thank you. We're going to come back to you. Ryan, I want to sneak you in here because when you look at this, right, now that we have projected it's advancing to a runoff, where do those Wesley Hunt voters go?
I mean, it's 10 to 15% depending on how it falls. So they're going to make the difference between who wins and who ultimately becomes the Republican nominee. And it's interesting. I was talking to some folks adjacent to the Cornyn campaign earlier today. Wesley Hunt was surging. We seem to forget this. When he first got into the race, there was this idea that he was going to be an afterthought. And there was a super PAC associated with Cornyn World that really went after Wesley Hunt 3 weeks ago. And it basically, he was drawing from Paxton. He was picking up speed. That super PAC knocked him out. So now the question is, when you pick up the dust from his campaign, where do those voters go? I think there's one person who knows where those voters go. He sits at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And if he tells those Wesley Hunt voters, vote for John Cornyn, maybe they go there. If he doesn't, if he stays on the sidelines, I think it's a jump ball.
Interesting political nugget from one of our incredible political producers here, Bridget Bowman, who spoke with Congressman Hunt. He said he wasn't sure if he was going to endorse on the runoff. If he were to, it's not going to be Cornyn.
Yeah, I think that's obvious, right? You don't run against an incumbent if you think the incumbent should still keep the job. I think it's an assumption, a fairly safe one, that Wesley Hunt will endorse Ken Paxton if he endorses at all. But yeah, I think you're exactly right, Ryan. To me, the person who matters now is Donald Trump. I was told today by a person familiar with the White House's thinking that he's now more likely than not to endorse, dependent on the results tonight. I mean, to the discussion we were just having. If he can be the closer, if he can sort of pragmatic Trump who can take credit for a win, he'll do that. Also, they are very aware of the Paxton scandals and of the possibility there could be more to come over the course of the summer. Paxton has a divorce trial coming up over the course of this summer. His estranged wife has, talked a little bit, but indicated that perhaps she will have more to say about this. These are not
his estranged wife is a sitting state senator, right?
That's right, from Collin County, which we were just talking about. These are not risks Republicans want to take in Texas. Texas should be easy. It should be off the board. And again, these people close to the White House think ultimately that the president will see it that way, and they're trying to perhaps get him to see it that way.
Exactly. We want to head out now to Amy Walter, who is watching all of this with us very closely.
Hi, friend.
Hello, Amy. Good to see you.
I know, this is so fun. I get to be at the table with you guys. I wanted to jump into this conversation for a long time.
Well, dive in.
This is
Dive
really
in.
smart.
Tell us your thoughts on Texas and how things are shaping up, the runoff, and the big wrinkle on the Democratic side.
Oh, I know. Everything here that you all have said has been really spot on. And, look, when we were sort of following this race, I don't know, 25 minutes ago, where it looked as if we knew that there was going to be a runoff on the Republican side, Tallarico was leading. This is where I'm absolutely in tune with Ryan on this, that it looked as if Democrats were going to have a great story to tell on Wednesday morning, which is we're united. We've got a great candidate behind us. These guys are going to have to fight it out on the Republican side until the end of May. We've got all the momentum and all the energy, and there could be a bump in that narrative if we are still waiting deep into Wednesday on the final results from Dallas. But at the end of the day, you guys are totally right that it really comes down to, on the Republican side, what Donald Trump decides to do. What's really remarkable, though, and we've seen this very few times, but even when Donald Trump has weighed in, he usually wins, but there are times when he hasn't. There has been more than $70 million spent thus far in this primary telling Texas voters that John Cornyn is the better candidate and Ken Paxton is a terrible candidate. And that $70 million has only gotten Cornyn to 34%. So at the end of the day, will a Donald Trump endorsement be enough?
And what? Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead, Amy.
Technically, it has been, but even then, you've got a lot of skeptical Republicans.
We're taking a look at some of those ad spending numbers that you talked about on both sides of the primary aisle here on Democrats and Republicans. And it's just a staggering amount of money. And it brings up this question about resources, right? If you've got tons and tons and tons of millions and millions of dollars getting poured in here, you've got this runoff, you've got competitive races in House and Senate races throughout the country as we head into the rest of primary season over the next few months. The balance, right? When you start to think about where the resources are going, where the energy, where the candidly like the earned media attention is going too. I mean, all of this starts to play a factor.
That's exactly right. And there will be, so Trump is the number one factor, absolutely, on the Republican side. The second factor, if Trump either takes a pass or he's taking his time to come up with an answer, is how much more money will that sort of status quo Republican establishment, et cetera, put into a runoff campaign? And I come up next with, if it does not come to that same number as we're seeing right now, and the benefit of Cornyn, not as much money spent, say, in the runoff as we've seen in the primary, what's going to happen post-May? If Paxton is the nominee and he is now going to be the one trying to raise that kind of money, where is that coming from, and where will donors be? There's obviously going to be a tremendous amount of pressure from national
Amy,
Republicans.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here. Sorry to pause you.
Yeah,
Senator
no
Cornyn
problem.
speaking now. We want to listen in live just briefly.
I want to start by thanking my family, without whose support and love I could not do what I get an opportunity to do, representing 32 million Texans in the United States Senate. I want to thank everybody who voted for me, and the way I view it, it's an indication of their trust in the service that I provided to this great state for many years now. To Congressman Wesley Hunt and his family, you ran a spirited race and you have a bright future, and I wish you well. We now head into a 12-week primary runoff. Elections are about choices, and the choice in the Republican race for the U.S. Senate is crystal clear. I've worked for decades to build the Republican Party, both here in Texas and nationally. I refuse to allow a flawed, self-centered, and shameless candidate like Ken Paxton risk everything we've worked so hard to build over these many years. There is simply too much at stake in this midterm election for our state and for our country. The final 2 years of President Trump's agenda hangs in the balance. I'm proud to have supported President Trump and worked with him to help him achieve his goals in the Congress. If he's nominated, there's a high risk that Paxton would lose this Senate seat, taking 5 congressional seats down with him. And you don't have to take my word for it. In public polling in the last few months, U.S. Senate nominees are either tied with or beating Paxton if he were the nominee. Ken Paxton as the nominee would be a dead weight at the top of the ticket for Republicans running all across this great state. Over the next 12 weeks, Texas Republican primary voters will hear more about my record of delivering conservative victories in the United States Senate and learn more about Ken's indefensible personal behavior and failures in office. Just like the primary, we have a plan to win the runoff, and we are in the process of executing it. Judgment Day is coming for Ken Paxton. Thank you all. May God bless Texas, and may God continue to bless in the United States of America.
Questions? That's unusual.
Was just listening on questions there.
What do you feel like you need to do to motivate your voters versus Paxton's voters?
I didn't motivate.
Well, fortunately, I've had the experience of winning a runoff previously when I was Attorney General. I won a contested runoff for the Republican nomination then. Obviously, we need to encourage as many people as possible who voted in the primary to come back on May the 26th. Fortunately, Texas has an early voting period, which will allow anybody and everybody who wants to vote an opportunity to cast their ballot early. If they don't do it, then they can do it on May the 26th. I think there'll probably be, last count, maybe as many as 5 races on the ballot, which will make it much more likely we'll see a robust turnout of voters then. But as I said, and as I think we've demonstrated, there's simply just too much at stake for Texas voters to stay home. And I don't expect them to stay home. I expect a robust turnout. We'll certainly be encouraging that.
And you've been listening to Senator John Cornyn trying to energize his supporters by saying, now we are heading into a runoff election against Ken Paxton. Now is the time to turn out. And let me go back to Amy Walter. Amy, let me just get your reaction to part of what we heard from him. He described Ken Paxton as flawed, shameless, self-centered. Those are some of the nicer things he's actually said about Ken Paxton. If you actually look at some of the ads he's run against Ken Paxton, they have just been bruising.
Candidate. So that's one of the reasons you wait and count. So you're at 61% statewide. It was 65% there in Houston, 61% now in Dallas County. This is where Congresswoman Crockett would have to make up most of the math, her home base, Dallas County, and over here in Tarrant County, where we have 60%. So you have about 40% of the vote in both of these major population centers, the number 2 largest county and the 3rd largest county. That's why you just be cautious. You don't want to get it wrong. You want to see what happens. However, I would say as you go through the count, it just jumped up to 73,000 votes. We get up to 62%. And what's happening is down here in the Rio Grande Valley, majority Latino communities, the state representative, Mr. Tallarico, you see it there. Not a lot of votes here. Not a lot of votes here. 335 votes to 134 votes. You come over here, 634 votes to 336 votes. But Tallarico in these smaller counties along the border, and then in these smaller rural counties up here in Northwest Texas, is running up big margins. Again, not a lot of people, 44 votes to 27 votes, right? 98 votes to 64 votes. But just like that is key to Donald Trump running up big margins in any state that has small rural counties, it's helping Tallarico tonight run up the math, his math in these rural counties. So it's a 73,000 vote lead with 62% of the vote in. Some questions obviously being raised by the Crockett campaign. Our decision desk is going through the math. Their main focus, I'm told, is just to get a higher percentage of the today vote, the election day voting, to see if it tracks the early voting. That's when you feel safe about making a projection. We're simply not there yet. We'll keep counting.
Yeah, and John, let's take a look at the Republican race right now. Are we in territory where we know this is going to be a runoff?
We're very close. We're very close. Same dynamic I just said. You get the early votes in, then you're looking for election day votes, and then you just want to double check and triple check your math, right? It's the first night of the primary season. There's no reason to be in a rush about anything, but your eyes don't lie here. If you just look at the math, we're up to about 60% of the vote in the Republican primary. You're at 43% to 40%. It's John Cornyn, the Republican incumbent, at 43, Ken Paxton, the state attorney general, at 40%. And Congressman Wesley Hunt at 13%, if you round that up. Your eyes don't lie. Somebody has to get to 50 plus 1, and you're at 60% of the vote. And this margin has held for pretty much the last few hours as more votes have come in. The margin has been pretty consistent. And so your eyes tell you and your gut tells you we're headed for a runoff. But again,
John,
go ahead.
John, as you're talking, I'm being told that we are making the call. This is officially headed to a runoff. It'll be John Cornyn against Ken Paxton in a Republican runoff just ahead. I mean, this is the scenario that some Republicans wanted to get ahead of, but it looks like it is going to happen. It is going to happen in the next few weeks. John, what's your sense of what Ken Paxton's strengths are? Because I mean, John Cornyn is the incumbent here, and
right.
You know, perhaps he's the person who has the most recognition in the state, but does Ken Paxton have some pockets of strength?
Number one, Ken Paxton has many pockets of strength. You see it right here. You see Cornyn and Paxton essentially splitting the state. If you look, the dark red is Paxton, the lighter red is John Cornyn, and you just see them moving around. Now, Cornyn has won. This actually surprised me earlier. Cornyn has won in most of the major population centers. So you think he goes back to the Bush days, right? I'm oversimplifying this, but this race, Cornyn-Paxton, is Bush versus Trump in some ways. The old school Republican Party versus the MAGA Republican Party. Now, Cornyn has tried to move and at least draft with Trump, right? To try to, as you know, as so many Republicans have tried to do in the Trump age, they don't perform like Trump. They're not as provocative or as coarse as Trump, but Cornyn has voted with Trump most of the time in the Senate leadership. But look at the map. They're kind of splitting county to county. One of the rules tells you if the incumbent can't win the primary and gets put in a runoff, it's very hard for the incumbent. He's going to get a one-on-one race now. If he can't win now, why would he win in a runoff? So your panel can talk about this better than I can. The pressure is going to come on one Donald J. Trump to get involved in the Texas primary. And Cornyn is going to go to him and say, Paxton is a more damaged candidate. I'm a stronger general election candidate. I'm not saying that's true, but that's the argument Cornyn is going to make. And Abby, this is the point I think anybody in this race is going to make. In a Republican, in a midterm election year that we already know is a tough climate for Republicans. Trump's approval rating is below 40. That tells you the Democrats are going to take back the House if that doesn't change. It tells you the Senate is in play, but the Democrats need essentially to draw to an inside straight or an inside straight flush even, and Texas is one of their targets. $71 million just by pro-Cornyn forces so far. Now we're going to take this race through May, right? Think about this Republican race. How much money is going to be spent on to pick a Republican nominee in Texas in a year when Republicans have to defend their House majority, a Senate seat in Ohio, a Senate seat in Alaska, a Senate seat in Texas, a Senate seat in North Carolina? And so the argument is going to be, why should we do this for a few more months? Why do we have to spend all this money? So Cornyn will go to Trump. Paxton will go to Trump, and they're going to say, sir, we need you to put your thumb on the scale. That's what the president did not do in this primary. He stayed out of it because each one of these candidates has been good to Trump, has helped Trump along the way. And so Trump stayed out of it. There's going to be a lot of pressure now for Trump to put his thumb on the scale to try to save them spending all that money. But the argument Democrats are going to make, and we're still waiting to clear up that nominee, is keep it up, gentlemen. Keep shedding blood, keep attacking each other, keep weakening each other, because we all know Texas is hard for Democrats. They need to have their coalition perfect, and the debate about disenfranchising tonight could hurt that effort. But Democrats have to be perfect, and they'd really appreciate some help from Republicans, and they just might get it.
Yeah, the Democrats have to be perfect, and they would love Republicans to be a hot mess going into November. That would help them a lot. All right. So, look, there's a lot to talk about there. And I think the first thing that comes to mind is, did Trump make a mistake in not making a decision about what he was going to do in this race on the Republican side early on?
I don't think so. I actually think he should have let the voters, the primary voters at least, who tend to be more energized, litigate this themselves. But look, if Paxton loses this seat, the Senate GOP majority is in danger. And that means Trump's last 2 years are going to be hell. He's going to be managing a Congress that is, I mean, Congress has been ineffective now. Wait till it's not necessarily, in our hands. But I will say, what the MAGA voters who like Paxton might be thinking is, well, on the merits, Cornyn is old school, and Paxton, though the baggage is an infinite list, he was at the forefront of the culture war confrontation over 2020, especially when it came to the 80-20 issues of sex changes for children, when it came to COVID, draconian mandates and restrictions. He fought for those things. And those are actually pretty traditionally conservative ideas. Like, I think MAGA sometimes means big government, but like libertine social ideas. Technically, what Ken Paxton did as AG for this very long tenure was pretty traditionally conservative.
All right. Let me go back to Jeff Zeleny, who's with James Tallarico's election night party tonight. Jeff, what are you hearing right now from the Tallarico campaign about what they're expecting tonight?
Well, Abby, this is a party that is put on hold as a legal matter is looked into a bit more in Dallas County. So we are in Austin. That's where James Tallarico was expecting to hold a campaign party tonight. And his advisors are very confident of what they are seeing in these numbers coming in really across the state. But obviously, Dallas County, very major, very key to any statewide campaign here. There was confusion there that was known, actually detected earlier in the day. My colleague Arlette Saenz, who was in Dallas throughout the day talking to voters, noticed that there was some voters were confused about being turned away from polling places. The reason is this: Dallas County decided to effectively have the primary held slightly differently because of some disagreement between Republicans and Democrats. So there was not a joint primary effectively. So voters were effectively told to vote in their precincts, not necessarily at a central voting location in a normal primary. It's a little bit in the weeds here, but it mattered because voters were turned away from some polling places, which created some confusion. So shortly before the polls would have closed at 7 p.m., there was some legal action that was taken initially by the Crockett campaign was going to do it, but it appeared that the Democratic Party decided to do it in Dallas County to effectively ask a judge to keep the polls open. So the polls were kept open for 2 more hours until 9 o'clock here in Texas. It's an open question how many people actually voted during those 2 hours. We're hearing anecdotal reports that were certainly not long lines because many of the people who couldn't vote earlier had gone home. So a little while ago, we heard Jasmine Crockett saying voters had been disenfranchised. She said that she's considering her options effectively. So that is why we are in a bit of a standstill here. Again, the Tallarico campaign is very confident of their performance tonight, but also mindful and treading carefully about their next steps here. Obviously wanting to protect voter rights, but also wanting to try and preserve some party unity. So we've seen other situations like this over the years. We will see if Tallarico comes out and addresses his crowd. But I can tell you, the campaign has not said a single thing to any of his supporters gathered here. It's a bit of a wait and see as 3 bars are open around me. Most of his supporters are spending their time there waiting to see what happens. Abby?
Yeah, all right, Jeff Zeleny, thank you. So bring it back into the room here. Dana, this could get maybe a little bit messy, but I mean, let's look at where we are now. I mean, Tallarico has, at the moment, a fairly healthy lead, and Jasmine Crockett is holding out essentially for Dallas County. Is that false hope? Is it real hope? I mean, is this just stirring the pot of party disunity?
I don't know that it's stirring the pot. I mean, I think, give her the benefit of the doubt that there are people who wanted to vote and she wants them to be able to vote no matter where they are in Texas. The fact that they're in her hometown of Dallas is certainly another factor here. So, I mean, let's let the process play out. I mean, it's an open question. I do want to just quickly go back to the Republican side for a second and the question of whether the president will endorse. I was told today that, it's very likely that the president will endorse, understanding all of the factors that everybody has talked about here today, not the least of which is the money.
Yeah,
How much
they don't want to
money
be
would be
dumping a ton
wasted.
of money into
Exactly.
Texas. It would take a lot of money.
And the Cornyn campaign has around it a lot of the veterans of the Trump campaign.
Chris
People like
Lasavita.
the campaign manager, the pollster. So a lot of the apparatus around Cornyn has a lot of credibility with President Trump. So that, I'm sure, will be brought to bear. Cornyn was just speaking a moment ago. It's chippy. I'll tell you what he said. He said Paxton is a flawed, self-centered, and shameless candidate. He promises Paxton's, quote, indefensible personal behavior and failures in office. Judgment Day is coming for Ken Paxton. So whatever you thought was nasty just before the end of the primary, get ready for more, is what I'm hearing from Cornyn.
But there is also a huge amount of enthusiasm on the Democratic side.
Oh,
Tons
yeah.
of new voters coming into the process right now. And as John described, it could be they need a perfect race, but they could have the raw materials for it this cycle.
Absolutely. I mean, because like I said, people are really frustrated with the economy. Everybody's mad about the direction that the country's going. They're upset about this situation in Iran. And this election is an opportunity for them to respond. Because as a voter in this country, going to the ballot box is your way to be able to tell the president of the United States whether or not you are okay with what he's doing. And I just happen to believe that going around Texas and talking to as many people as I have, this is going to be the year that Democrats are going to make a big push at the ballot box.
All right, everybody. Our special coverage is going to continue with Laura Coates Live. That starts right now.
Good evening. I'm Laura Coates on this busy election night where there is some major drama in the Democratic Senate primary in Texas. Right now, Texas State Rep James Talrico is leading Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in the race to be the Democratic nominee for Senate. Both are trying to do what no Democrat has done in a generation, win a statewide race in Texas, which has not happened since 1994. But this primary just got more complicated because the Texas Supreme Court has blocked an earlier ruling that allowed extended voting hours in Dallas County. The court said any votes that came in after the original closing time should not be counted tonight while the case is litigated. They should be separated. Moments ago, Crockett spoke, saying she thinks it's unlikely that a winner will even be known tonight. On the Republican side, incumbent Senator John Cornyn will be headed to a bruising runoff against Attorney General Ken Paxton after neither candidate cleared 50% plus one of the vote. Our reporters and analysts are here to cover it all tonight. And I want to start with CNN's John King, who was at the Magic Wall. John, tell me, how important is the vote count out of Dallas County for that Talrico Crockett race?
Well, obviously, it is her home base, and every vote counts. And on this first primary night of 2026, we certainly want to start by making sure every vote is counted. But let's look at it. The question is, though, Laura, we'll see what happens in the courts, and we'll see which ballots they count. Hopefully, they count them all if people were in line and thought they could vote. The question is it enough? Is it enough? Because you look right now at the race, the state representative, as you mentioned, James Talrico, leading there 52 to 47. So he's got a 5-point lead, or 70, just shy of 75,000 votes at the moment, with about 63% of the vote counted. Now, how much is out in Dallas County? It's a good question. If they're going to have litigation now about, are all ballots counted or are some ballots, because of the state Supreme Court ruling, ruled out of bounds or after time. At the moment, she's winning big there, 61 to 38. Again, this is her home base, Dallas County, and next door in Tarrant County, Fort Worth, Dallas-Fort Worth, where her district stretches, and she's winning big there with about 65% in. But if you look at the rest of the map, Talarico's running up an impressive coalition. If you look in the other major areas, Travis County, where Austin is, that's the home base of the legislature where he works. It's the big government town, fifth largest of the 254 counties, excuse me. He's getting 76%. You move down to Bexar County, that's San Antonio. He's getting 57% of the vote there. Also impressive, Laura, we've talked about the Latino vote. Did Texas Republicans make a bad bet? Did they think all those Latinos who drifted toward Trump would stay with Republicans? We won't know the answer until November, how that actually plays out in this race and every other race in Texas. But if you look along the Rio Grande Valley, that's mostly Talarico blue you're seeing there. And if you go into some of these counties, it's by pretty big numbers. That has been part of his sales pitch, that he's a candidate who can win some white moderate voters, also win Latino voters. The question is, if he defeats Crockett, and that's an if at this moment, can he also bring in the African-American base of the party? That'll be a question going forward and a conversation for your panel. But the Democrats are trying to pick a candidate. And as you noted, this is every 2 years or 4 years, we say, is Texas about to go blue? Is there a chance? They think because of Trump's approval rating and the climate, the broader national midterm climate, that they have a chance. The question now is, who will that Democrat be running against? When incumbents are forced into runoffs, they usually lose. John Cornyn with 43%, he's the senator, he's the incumbent senator. Ken Paxton, the attorney general, at 41. Congressman Wesley Hunt at 13. You look at the map, it's Cornyn and Paxton essentially trading counties as you go through. What's going to happen right now, Laura, this has already been, I just want to show you this. It'll make everybody at home sick to their stomach because this has already been the most expensive Senate race in history, $71 million just for pro-Cornyn forces. You see all this other money spent. The question is, you have a Republican runoff that goes into May in a midterm election year where Republicans have to defend a lot of ground nationally, a lot of expensive places outside of Texas they need to defend. And so now you're going to have both Cornyn and Paxton going to one Donald J. Trump and say, Mr. President, put your thumb on the scale, because otherwise you're going to have more bloodshed, more spending, more Republican fighting in a place. Listen, if we're talking about this on election night in November, then that means the Democrats are in a very favorable climate. So we still don't know who the Democratic candidate is going to be, but we do know the Republican race goes on for a couple more months, and it's been ugly so far. I can only imagine what it gets like going forward.
So let's talk about going forward with that runoff between Cornyn and Paxton, given, of course, we don't know who they will ultimately, either of them will face in the general. But can you project out a little bit based on what you're seeing right now?
Again, history tells you that incumbents, when forced into that one-on-one race, if they had an early one and they get pushed into a runoff, very hard, right? You're an incumbent. Why didn't you win the first time, right? The forces of change are out there coming at you. However, as Cornyn has said repeatedly, and he's run some pretty crazy eye-opening ads. I'm not going to repeat the language in them, but you can find them on YouTube, folks at home, if you want to see them. This has been a nasty. I mean, we know about nasty races. This might give new meanings to nasty as you go through. Paxton has had a number of character challenges, a number of ethical challenges, and Cornyn has tried to take advantage of them. But despite all that money he spent, I just showed it to you, they're running almost even in that race. So the question is what happens? You say, so you look at the map like this and you say, can you find a strength or a weakness when it's a one-on-one? It's pretty hard, actually. I just want to show you, if this is overgeneralizing, but this is Bush versus Trump. Cornyn goes back to the George W. Bush days, the Karl Rove days in Texas, even though he has tried to draft with Trump, in Washington, like a lot of Republicans do. He's not performative like Trump. Paxton is a mega Republican. He sues to help Trump. He says elections were stolen and things like that. So you look at, for Cornyn to win, he needs the traditional, college-educated, suburban, affluent Republicans. In Dallas County, he did pretty well there, 53% to 31%. What struck me is you come down here to Houston and Harris County, the fastest growing part of the state, they ran even down here. So your more traditional Republicans in that part of the state did not go Cornyn's way. There, you come over again, to the big government town here. This is where Cornyn did have a bigger margin. Your establishment Republicans are around the government town. This is the lobbyists and the fundraisers and things like that. And so you can look at it and see some of the establishment, anti-establishment. Up here in these rural counties where Trump usually runs it up, Cornyn's actually doing pretty well. These are places, not by huge margins, but these are places Trump has won. So I can actually I can go one place and make the Cornyn argument. I can go somewhere else and make the Paxton argument. I will just tell you, in 40 years of doing this, if you're the incumbent and you get forced through a runoff, that's a problem. But again, given all the Republican dynamics nationally and where they're going to need money and need resources, and they would like to focus their attention, the next question in this race will not be the voters in May. It'll be Donald Trump, like tomorrow.
I'm curious also who gets Wesley Hunt's votes going forward as well. John King, stay with us. We'll come back to you in just a moment. A lot to get to tonight. Jasmine Crockett says that she thinks we won't even know the winner of the Democratic Party tonight because the Texas Supreme Court blocked a decision from a judge who ruled that Dallas polling places had to be kept open for 2 hours later than usual. Here's what she said just a few moments ago.
But I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised. The polls were supposed to stay open until 9. According to a court order. The Supreme Court, just a few minutes ago, just said, shut it down. The Supreme Court also said that they are to separate any votes out that came in after 7 p.m. What this means is that we will not know what votes are to be tallied from Election Day out of Dallas County. For sure, we won't know that tonight.
She's referencing, of course, the Texas Supreme Court. I want to bring in CNN's Jeff Zeleny. He's at James Talrico's headquarters in Austin. Jeff, we know Jasmine Crockett will not be appearing again tonight. She said as much because this legal fight over the voting extension in Dallas County. What is the Talrico camp saying, Jeff?
Well, Laura, perhaps you can see behind me here, there are a few hundred supporters of James Talarico who have been waiting for what they had hoped would be a victory speech or perhaps some word for the campaign, but it effectively has been just a wait and see with no official announcement from the Talarico campaign at all here. So it is unclear what is coming next. One thing that is clear, the Talarico campaign is confident of their showing across the state of Texas. They believe that they have done very well with Hispanic voters. They believe that they have done very well building a coalition. But one piece of that coalition that, of course, is important to any Democratic candidate is African-American voters, and they largely supported Jasmine Crockett. So that is one of the reasons that I am told that the Talarico campaign is treading carefully here. They are obviously not wanting to disenfranchise any voters and obviously wanting to wait and see for a bit. But the question is, how long does that go? Of course, we are just about, a little over an hour after the polls closed here. So not all that much time has passed, but certainly a significant here. But we've not seen James Talarico. But Laura, just taking kind of a bigger picture here from this confusing point at the end. This has been an extraordinary campaign that Texas has seen Jasmine Crockett, of course, a rising star in the Democratic Party, and James Tallarico. And they were effectively aligned on policy issues, but in a very different stylistic approach about what type of fighter to be. Jasmine Crockett, of course, wanted to be a louder fighter against President Trump and Republicans. James Tallarico often talked about bridging some of those divides, but did push very hard on immigration. So Texas voters had a choice, and we see what the vote has come in so far. But it is not enough. We are waiting for the vote in Dallas County. So certainly an interesting race as Texas Democrats hope that all sides can come together regardless of the outcome and do something that they have not done since 1988 and elect a U.S. senator as a Democrat from here in Texas.
Jeff Salami, a long night ahead. Thank you so much. I want to bring in my panel who will join me for the next hour. Dan Coe, former special assistant to President Biden and also congressional candidate in Massachusetts. T.W. Arrighi, former senior communications aide to Senator Lindsey Graham. Lulu Garcia-Navarro, CNN contributor and New York Times journalist and podcast host. And Brad Todd, CNN political commentator and Republican strategist. I'm glad to have all of you guys here because this is pretty significant what's happening in Texas right now. I mean, the results may not be expected according to Crockett this evening. We will see. Of course, the difference between what is outstanding versus what the lead will be very telling. What do these results tell you so far, Lulu? Tallarico is in the lead as of now.
Yeah, I've just been looking at some of the numbers that have come in, and what it says to me, because I've been looking very closely at the Hispanic vote, because Latinos are in play in this election. You're going to see it in the midterms. They swung obviously towards Trump pretty hard, even in Texas. And what we're seeing now is that Tallarico has done really, really well. Travis County up 53 points. Harris County, Crockett is only up by 8. You know, we've just seen El Paso as well. Tallarico up by 26. So, you know, what this says to me is that he has really been able to make a pitch to the constituency of Latinos. And I think that gives the wind at his back. I spoke to a family that I have in Texas. They went for Tallarico. They felt that he was the more viable option for them. You know,
viable in the general election?
In the general election, because this is the thing. You know, people are voting strategically. At the end of the day, policy-wise, these candidates don't have a lot to differentiate them. It's more about style and who they are. And really, the people that I've spoken to in Texas, they want to win, and they feel like Tallarico might be the ticket.
Well, you know, obviously, there's a lot of gamesmanship that's happening all across the board. And one area, of course, is the Attorney General in Texas appealed to the Texas Supreme Court about those voting hours being extended. The Attorney General, you guessed it, is Ken Paxton. There's been thoughts from the Crockett camp that people have thought who is the more viable candidate and to try to suppress voters for her. Talk to me about your impressions of these results so far and the fact that there is going to be a cloud, no matter how you slice it, over the fact that these polling hours is now an issue.
Well, I would pump the brakes until we learn a little bit more. I think Ken Paxton and John Cornyn would love to run against Jasmine Crockett. If
Why?
They were going to, because she's the more defeatable candidate. Lulu made a great point about Hispanics. She has lost tremendous ground with Hispanics due to her past comments about Hispanics and sort of their mentality toward voting. Jasmine Crockett also is just far out of line for where Texas is, generally speaking.
To be clear, she said that they had a slave mentality,
correct.
the ones that voted for Donald Trump.
That is correct. And as you pointed out, they are going to be a battleground this race and all the races moving forward. So there's tons of vulnerabilities there that can be exploited, especially if you're Ken Paxton, you have a bunch of baggage yourself. It's good to also direct fire elsewhere. But I think in the early stages here, John made an interesting point about how it's tough being an incumbent and going into a runoff. But there's one X factor, and it's Donald Trump. So
he didn't endorse.
Correct. But I think how these polls play out today and where the pecking order is and who the Democratic nominee is, I assure you, Donald Trump will be looking at where Paxton comes out, where Cornyn comes out, and then where Tallarico is, because it smacks a lot of 2018. If we want to avoid that, Cornyn's our guy.
I do wonder, given the fact there will be a runoff and there is an incumbent involved, would that disincentivize Donald Trump from wanting to join in and endorse because the candidate was not a clear victor?
Well, Donald Trump's endorsement pattern in this election cycle has been very different from prior election cycles. In prior cycles, he picked the person who was typically the more maverick candidate, the more outsider candidate. This cycle, he's been very pragmatic. He's picked a candidate that he thought could win the election in November. He's taken a lot of guidance from a lot of other people who had strong opinions about it. He's weighing his options and his endorsements pretty carefully. I think TW's right. I think that if John Cornyn comes out tonight ahead, and if the Republican number versus the Democrat number overall is close, which would be good for Democrats. Republicans typically outvote Democrats in primaries in Texas. If Democrat enthusiasm is a little higher, Tallarico's the nominee, John Cornyn's ahead. I don't think it's impossible that Donald Trump weighs in here. He does not want Texas to be something we're arguing about in October.
Dan, talk to me about this matching game, right? If this person, then this person. I think about nationally.
Yeah.
As Lulu points out, if you're talking about Tallarico and Crockett, policy-wise, they're not that far apart in their stances. The way that they present themselves, worlds apart. They have very different personalities. And frankly, Crockett has been on a national stage for far longer, obviously, than a state rep like Tallarico. What does this say about the national Democratic Party and what they want out of their candidate?
Well, I think what's exciting is that whether it be Tallarico or Crockett, there's a lot of enthusiasm behind both. And you're seeing Democratic enthusiasm, whether it be New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, Oklahoma, or even Arkansas tonight. In Texas itself, Democratic turnout has doubled since 2022. Trump's net approval has dropped 20 points. You have Cornyn, who's 13 points underwater. You have Paxton, who used public resources to cover up his affair, underwater by 9 points. Meanwhile, Crockett's net positive 10 points, and Tallarico's net positive 18 points, right? So, there are 5 people on the ballot tonight, but this is really about one person, Donald Trump. And if you look at the national wins, it's a problem for Republicans in Texas.
I wonder if we're giving Donald Trump too much credit in this particular race. What do you think?
Well, listen, if Donald Trump's endorsement mattered so much in this particular race, and my Republican friends here could speak more about this than I can. I don't know. But the thing here that I'm just noticing is that you can argue with voters all you want. You can tell them, hey, this is what we think you should do because this is how it's all going to play out. And voters do what voters do. They get excited by a candidate, and there is a lot of enthusiasm for Ken Paxton. He's a known quantity. They see him as a fighter. They have dismissed, some of the baggage that he carries, and they feel like he might be the man. And also, by the way, Donald Trump likes Ken Paxton much more than he likes Cornyn. So even if Donald Trump says, you know what, Cornyn, I'm going to give you the endorsement, I mean, it's going to be out of the side of his mouth because we know that it's not his favorite candidate on the ballot.
Stand by, everyone. I want to keep talking about this. You have much more ahead. Ken Paxton, we're just speaking about it, just spoken about his runoff. Our reporter is at his headquarters, and we'll take you there next.
CNN This Morning with Audie Cornish. Weekdays at 6 a.m. on CNN.
Ever since I started wearing hands-free Glide Step Skechers Sleep-ins, my other shoes are useless. With Skechers Sleep-ins, I just step in and they're on. Try Skechers Sleep-In.
All of this means.
Yeah, it's clearly very important to the Crockett campaign. This is her base of supporters. What happened in Dallas dates back to last year when Dallas Republicans said that they wanted to hand count their ballots, and to do so, they needed to have all of the elections run at a precinct level. So they voted to do precinct level polling, just like Williamson County, and Democrats had to follow suit according to state law. Now, this change led to quite a lot of confusion because voters who up till yesterday could vote at county-wide polling sites could not do that today because they had to go to their assigned precinct. Now, if you went to the wrong place, or you went with your family and discovered that you were at the Republican polling site, not the Democratic polling site. This is sort of the kind of confusion that voters experience. Democrats tell us thousands of voters went to the wrong polling site. A judge ordered the polls to stay open for 2 more hours, but the Texas Supreme Court ordered that to be stayed and then said all of those ballots of voters taking advantage of the extra 2 hours, that those should be kept separate, injecting so much more confusion into an already confusing day for many voters, because it's really truly unclear what's going to happen to those ballots, which are now separated from the rest of the day's ballots.
And I think there's two questions here. I think, Jane, one of which you may be able to answer, one of which I don't think anybody's going to be able to answer yet, which is number one, are those ballots from the 2-hour period that you're talking about, is there a chance those ballots will not be counted? And then secondly, and I think this is a Kornacki/future question, is there a chance that those ballots would even make a difference either way in this race? So take that first part of it for me, Jane, if you can. Is there a chance legally now that those provisional ballots could end up tossed?
Absolutely. So you don't separate ballots unless you think you might not use them. Once they've been separated, the court can now say they believe that order was made illegal and that those ballots shouldn't count. They say that the voting should have just taken place up till 7 p.m. And time will tell whether it's how many ballots this actually affects. Because if you were in line before 7, the court says that your ballot should continue on. You would have cast a normal ballot, as they say. This is a provisional ballot that is still in question.
So then quickly, Jane, what's the timeline on a decision here? I mean, there's obviously a degree of urgency on a court decision on this.
I mean, they got to move quick,
As
right?
usual,
But
voter suppression.
this is all new territory
Voter
for us.
suppression
So
at
we'll
its best.
see. I'll be watching
These
the
guys
docket
cannot
online.
win
Okay.
without
Jane,
cheating.
Tim, appreciate you. Thank you
And,
very
the
much
fact
for
that
that. Up
they
next, we just got a bunch of new
used it
new votes in
against Crockett
the race where Congressman
makes me
Dan
believe
Crenshaw
that
is in
that's
the
the
fight
person
for
we
his
need.
political life. You've seen the numbers already. That's coming up after the break.
Just
Kornacki
saying.
Scramble and stay with us.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, these voter suppression tactics are going to be happening. One thing I don't understand is how come we haven't, um, how come we haven't tried to get ahead of it before it happens? It's absolutely crazy. You know it's coming. We knew it. We know it's coming, and that we still just cannot find a way to get ahead of this stuff. We still got more coming. I'm not talking a lot, as you guys can tell. I'm doing most of my stuff in the chat. Voice is crazy. I've done like 10 videos in 7 days, as well as the whole thing. I don't know, funerals, lives, live chat, live shows, and editing 3 documentaries. So, excuse me for not being the normal, type of content. Whenever I'm showing this stuff, I'm always talking with it and responding. But I am in the chats talking to you, and it takes a lot. It's a whole lot going on. Spec Ops team got a lot coming up. So we would surely appreciate any support that you'd like to give. Super chat, super thanks. We'll put everything up on the screen. But once again, here we are with voter suppression, right? From
now, Attorney
Lord
General
knows
Ken
who.
Paxton took the stage here
The only
and
thing that we can
decried a lot
believe
of
is it's the
big money
Republicans,
that
right?
has poured
That's
into
all we
this
can
race. There
believe.
was more than $70 million
And we are allowed to
came into
believe
this
that because that's all that
GOP
they do.
primary,
Just like
to
in
help boost
Georgia.
Senator
By the
John
time you
Cornyn
get
as
this
he is
court
really
decision
fighting for
to help the
political
voter
survival
suppression,
in his seat in the U.S.
many of the
Senate.
people
And
have already gone home.
Paxton had argued that Cornyn is not always aligned
Why
with
haven't
the president. He referenced some of
we
Cornyn's past
got a
remarks
handle
when
on
he
it
had
yet?
suggested
Anyway.
back in ahead of the
I'll be in the
2024
chat.
election that perhaps Trump's time was up in office. Take a listen to one of the attack lines that Ken Paxton previewed tonight.
For too long, he stabbed our president in the back by trying to derail his presidential campaigns and supporting the Democrats' lawfare against the president. And for too long, he sold us out to Democrats, even siding with Joe Biden to push the worst gun control bill in decades. Those days are coming to an end.
Now, Senator Cornyn really worked throughout this campaign to try to show his loyalty to President Trump. And one of the main attack lines from Cornyn against Paxton has been around some of those controversies that have surrounded the state attorney general. That includes some legal and personal scandals as well. And he made clear, speaking to reporters tonight, that he plans to continue those lines of attack in this runoff. Take a listen.
character is on the ballot. Ken Paxton doesn't believe that that matters. He believes that all of his misbehavior and his scandals are sort of baked in the cake, and he's won a couple of elections since much of that has come out. But there's much more that will come out in the runoff, and which will demonstrate his unfitness for office and his liability of him, the potential liability of him being the nominee in November.
Now, one big question looming over this contest is whether President Donald Trump will decide to finally get involved. He withheld an endorsement for any of the candidates during this primary contest, but he has left the door open to potentially endorsing a candidate when they get to a runoff. That is something that both the Cornyn sides and the Paxton sides will really be trying to push for in these next 12 weeks as they are trying to secure the GOP nomination. Both Cornyn and Paxton have said that it's an imperative heading into November that they are able to defeat a Democrat here at a time when some Democrats are holding out some hope that this could be the year Texas turns blue.
Well, Zion, thank you so much. My panel is back with me now. I have to say, when you talk about a grueling next 12 weeks, that phrase of a circular firing squad comes to mind. When
On
people
both
are-
sides.
On both sides. And so talk to me about the impact of this, having a runoff, number one, having the amount of money that's already been spent in terms of the attack ads and beyond. I mean, going into a general election, it's very problematic because now all the Achilles heels are on full display.
This is already the most expensive Senate primary in the history of our country. And I don't think we're a third of the way through the money that will be where we'll be in late May. The challenge for both these campaigns, if you go into a runoff, you are aiming not just at the people who didn't vote for you, vote for that third candidate who are out. You're also trying to move new people in. One unique feature of the Texas primary is that it's quite small. You know, you'll have about 10 million people vote in a presidential general election in Texas. We're going to see like 3 million people tonight vote, 3.32. So there are a lot of people who are on the sidelines tonight who could come back into these runoffs and change who wins.
Tell me why this has been so expensive. What is the real fear among Republicans to make this so expensive?
Well, I don't know if it's a fear per se. It's the schism between the MAGA base and the more generalistic party. Look, going into this election cycle, where we need to defend North Carolina, we have big races all over the country, Georgia and elsewhere. We can't be wasting resources going to Texas and donors sending money for a fight between Cornyn and Paxton.
Yet they are.
They are, but this is the impetus that will fall on President Trump. There will be senators calling him all throughout the night and all tomorrow, saying, "Get behind Cornyn. He can win." And we don't have to worry about it. The polling proves it out that he performs better than Paxton does.
But yet Paxton does, I mean, yes, he's got scandals, but he also is somebody who's associated with affirmative action and the overturning, and also with the abortion ban, which are issues that have been very popular among Republican voters.
Sure, but by the way, we're talking about John Cornyn like he isn't a down-the-line conservative. He has been a great conservative voice on the Hill, and he's been a great.
Laughing. Why are you laughing?
I'm just loving this because everyone loves to accuse Democrats of being lame and being a circular firing squad. There wasn't a bigger snoozer than that little clip of Paxton talking. You compare that to what Crockett's energy or Tallarico's energy. And now it looks like the Republicans are about to have a circling firing squad in Texas, while the energy is going to be with Democrats exactly where we want them.
Does it make a Democratic candidate more winnable as a result?
I think absolutely. And look, there's another important lesson here. There are two names of people that I used to serve with in the Biden-Harris administration, Jason Garza and Asa Cohen. They are the heads of video for James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett, respectively. They are out there. They have a new type of campaigning that's getting the media attention. And by the way, James Tallarico going on Joe Rogan is one of the only reasons why he's going to be the nominee, right? He's not afraid to go to
You
places.
think he will best Crockett in this?
If he does, a big reason will be he went on Joe Rogan. He did a phenomenal job. He was noticed. It's a place where Democrats don't usually go. It's a lesson learned that I think is really important.
Let's play a little bit of that clip from the Rogan interview.
There's reason and good reasons to be disillusioned. I guess all I'm pushing back on is that second step of it's always going to be this way.
Right. It doesn't have to be
right.
this way.
That is the key step.
Right.
So I'm
That's
not on.
because you need to run for president. It's 'cause you
Yeah.
We need someone who's actually a good person.
Well,
because the Democrats have very few candidates that are
You cut it right there. The Democrats have very few candidates that are cliffhanger, .. Good people. You know, what I look at there, the reason he was on Joe Rogan is because he had a huge social media game already. He was noticed by Joe Rogan on Instagram and on TikTok because he already had that momentum. And
like
so,
a Mamdani style social media campaign.
I mean, well, not a Mamdani style. It was actually him talking about his faith and him talking about his progressive values. And Joe Rogan found that to be an interesting juxtaposition. And that's where Tallarico has sort of staked interesting ground for the Democratic Party, which isn't to say that Democrats don't have people of faith. I mean, you've got a preacher, you know, Reverend Warnock, who's a senator, you know, in Georgia. So it's not like it's a new thing, but certainly he has managed to sort of capture this young, sort of forward-facing religious, progressive persona, talks about the Bible, talks about how faith doesn't have to only be owned by the right. And so I think people have found that to be exciting.
I would say she hasn't taken APAC money in a couple of years, Garrett.
Ashley, I want to bring you in here on a race we haven't talked about yet, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
The Texas governor's race.
Yeah,
we were talking a little bit about Democratic energy before we got on the air tonight, and I'm curious if you look at what we're seeing right now, Tallarico ahead in the Senate race, if there's any perhaps regret that a Jasmine Crockett or Colin Allred, although it looks like he might be coming on the way back, didn't decide to jump in and challenge Greg Abbott. There was a lot of talk as this race was starting to heat up that Democrats have sort of run one star at a time in Texas, and they've never been able to put together a slate of even like recognizable names up and down the ballot. Gina Hinojosa, we've projected, will win the Democratic nomination here to take on Greg Abbott, but that's not somebody with a lot of star power. Did the Democrats miss an opportunity here to put together a bigger slate going into the fall?
I mean, I think a lot of Democrats on the ground feel this way. I think that's why a lot of them sort of resented Jasmine Crockett jumping into this race very late. And I think you saw that in some of in the turnout, you know, that people were just frustrated with the fact that you had these two young rising stars running for the same seat and no one with any strong credentials running for the governor race. And especially at a time when, as I said earlier, half of the state is frustrated with the direction of the state. They're feeling like their finances aren't going in the right direction. So the governor was incredibly vulnerable in a way that we could have taken advantage of, and we actually didn't as a party. So I think it was an opportunity cost. But here's the
No, all right. Time out. I'm trying my hardest not to be talking too much, but bullshit, people. Bullshit. Are we forgetting why Jasmine Crockett had to run for Senate? What do you mean they didn't have somebody just jump inside of the governor's race? Because they gerrymandered the fuck out of it like 5 months ago. And she lost the place where she was already in Congress. That's why she's there. She didn't just jump into a race, YouTube. It's easy for these people to make. I was wondering myself, I almost forgot, why didn't she jump in? Oh shit, I almost forgot. Because Trump told them to gerrymander the hell out of their entire state, and she lost the place where she was already in Congress for. She doesn't have a district anymore. She was in Congress, elected by the people, and she doesn't have a district anymore because they gerrymandered it. And so all she can do is now try to run for the Senate. That's why she's there. We forgot about that. The governor's race, from when? She's a sitting congressperson. When was she going to run for governor? She wasn't going to run for Senate until they literally got rid of her district. These people just talk like there's no background. There's no reasoning for anything. Well, the Democrats, it's amazing. They don't have a person doing this. And, you know, why would she jump in the race? What do you mean, why? You've been reporting it all year. Weren't you there? You weren't there? What is wrong with the media? That's why we need independent media, guys. Like, I'm not even saying I would vote for this person or that person. I'm listening to all debates in the chat. What the fuck are we talking about, though? When people who are paid for this, literally, are going to sit there and tell you that they don't know why she jumped in a race at the last minute. Could it be because gerrymandering happened and there was an entire fight over it, and then Newsom had to gerrymander with the approval of his state? There's a gerrymander in Missouri, so Jordan Herrera lost his district, and about 5 other Democrats don't exist anymore. Did we forget about the whole gerrymander fight for the fucking 3 months it took? And all of a sudden, this person is just toxic, just jumped in the race? I like Crockett, and I'm going back and forth on who I think would win. That's fine. We can have that argument. But the more they act like this, the more I'm prone to say, what do you have against Crockett? Now I want her to win. She didn't just jump in anything. She lost her district due to fuckery and gerrymandering, asked for, illegal, by the way, and the court struck it down. That had to go to the Supreme Court, and they let it back in. What? None of that matters? Come on, guys. Come on, guys.
Moderate to severe Crohn's
Good thing
disease
I'm
or
here.
ulcerative colitis symptoms can keep you out
mean, I
of the
say it
picture.
tongue in
Now,
cheek,
there's
but
Sky
God,
Visit.
All right, now everybody's so
So everybody's
stress-free.
on.
When you need an HR
All right,
platform that's
everybody's on
easy
commercial.
and powerful, that's Bambooable. That's
I guess I can
Bamboo
rant some
HR.
more.
If
My
you know
voice is
luxury,
leaving. I'm
it's
sure
not
everybody
just
hears that.
It's rewarding.
It's been a
Sofa
really,
mattresses
really
supports all types of
long few
sleepers.
days, and I'm going to
Luxury
be going
is
to bed,
handcrafted and assembled
going
in
up and
American
hanging with the wife
factories
very
and
soon.
brought directly to you with our complimentary
I just wanted to
in-home
make sure that,
delivery and
we're here
setup
covering
service,
this. I won't be
which
talking
is
much,
why
but
over
when I hear
90%
stuff
of
like that, I
customers would recommend
absolutely
Sattva to
have to,
friends and family.
absolutely
Sattva,
have to
luxury mattresses
uh,
made affordable.
put some context
This
in
is
there.
something
Or,
no
or
one
you
would
would
have
think
expected.
that this stuff it just happened. It just happened. She just jumped into a race. Nobody was running for governor, not because the people who were running, everybody has lost their districts, and they gerrymandered the shit out of everything, and they're still losing now, by the way. She was a sitting congressperson. She was done. She did the work already. I'm not sure what more we're asking for. I'll stick with CNN. I was going to go to NBC, but
So
CNN looks like
you
they
look at
got something
this,
going
you see
on.
52 to
Let's check it
47,
out.
you see 85,920 votes ahead, and you ask the smart question at home, why haven't you called this race? Let me try to explain it to you. You've heard some controversy tonight about Dallas County. This is where Congressman Jasmine Crockett's district is. She says that she wants some votes counted. There's been a court case. The state Supreme Court has said, wait a minute, only if you voted before 7 o'clock. We want that to go forward. As someone who's done this for 40 years, I hope everybody was in line at 7 o'clock gets their vote counted. But, and this is important, but there would have to be 100,000, 200,000 votes here. There's no indication there's anywhere near that. That's not the issue. We want those votes to be counted, but Congresswoman Crockett would need tens of thousands of votes to overcome. Here's the reason we haven't called this race yet. There is another Democratic candidate on the ballot, a minor candidate on the ballot. So we need to wait for a little more of the vote to come in to make sure that he stays above 50%. It is most unlikely at this point that Congresswoman Crockett can come back. Mathematically, sure, it's possible, but you have 68% of the vote now counted. It is most unlikely. Improbable is being kind. The question is, when the rest of the vote comes in, well, let's just give you a look here. This is where the live outstanding vote is. You see some pretty big circles here. So we're up to 60% or 70% in some of these population centers, but the early votes came in first. Our decision desk just wants to get comfortable with the election day vote, get up to a higher percentage so you're comfortable. And you see in the Houston area here, pretty big circle. Up in the Dallas area, pretty big circle. Even in Austin and San Antonio, the color tells you who's winning in those areas. So if you're the Crockett campaign, you're saying, yeah, there's some votes down here. There are some votes up here. Again, though, you look at that margin, 85,000, and you look at that. But just the Republican race is going to a runoff because no candidate got 50% of the vote. I just want to remind people here, just show up the share of the vote right here. There is an other on the ballot here, and that other has 1.3% of the vote. So you've got 51.9, so 52 to 47. The question is, as the rest of the votes come in, does the third candidate grow a little bit to move that down from 52 to below 50? The math, as you come back to the full map, suggests that won't happen, but we're cautious, we're conservative here as we count votes. And so we just want more of the votes to get comfortable to make sure the Democratic race is not going to go to a runoff. But it looks at this moment, we're not there yet, but your eyes don't lie about the size of that lead.
And we know the Republicans have a runoff that's going to happen as well. Walk us through what's going on there.
All right, and so you have the Democratic incumbent. Again, I said this earlier, I'm overgeneralizing a bit, but this is essentially Bush versus Trump in the state of Texas, in that John Cornyn goes back to the George W. Bush, Karl Rove days in Texas. He has drafted with Trump in the United States Senate, but he's not a Trumpy guy, certainly not from a performative standpoint. He votes with the president most of the time. Republican incumbent in Texas getting 42% of the vote. That's not good. That's not good if you're the incumbent senator in your state in the Republican primary. The Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who is an election denier like Donald Trump, has sued to help Donald Trump in a lot of lawsuits in the courts. Much more Trumpy candidate getting 41%. Congressman Wesley Hunt, who's also been a Trump ally. Republicans there are going to call him the spoiler in this race at 13. What does this mean? This is definitely going to a runoff here, which means not until May will we know the Republican candidate. And when you look at the map, there's no magic in looking at the map to say which candidate has an advantage. I will say this 13% of the vote did not vote for John Cornyn, the incumbent senator on the ballot. History tells you if you're the incumbent, you do not want to be forced into a runoff, because if you only got 42% the first time, that tells you about 60% of your party is looking for something different. And now you're going to be in a one-on-one. But I would say this, as you look at this math tonight, yes, there will be a runoff in May. Yes, Texas Republicans will settle their candidate then. But between an hour or two ago, when we realized this was going to a Republican, and I would say a week from now, there's going to be a lot of phone calls, a lot of requests from Senator Cornyn, from Attorney General Paxton, from all of their allies on one man, the President of the United States, asking him to put his thumb on the scale and try to settle this. This is a tough midterm year for Republicans, Laura. This is the first primary night. Republicans tonight are going to lose their House majority. Can they change that between now and November? Sure. But history tells you, the president's approval rating tells you they're going to lose their House majority, and they are at risk of losing their Senate majority. Much more difficult for Democrats, but not impossible. What do you want? What do you not want if you're a Republican? To be spending tens of millions of dollars more on a family feud in Texas that could weaken your candidate and give Democrats a chance in a red state. So this is going to become a big issue at the Trump White House. It already is. But when the sun comes up tomorrow, a lot of people are going to be asking the president, sir, you didn't endorse in the primary. How about the runoff?
John King, stay with us. Thank you so much. Coming up, we will go back to James Tallarico's headquarters as results from this primary, they keep coming in.
Kara Swisher Wants to Live Forever, coming soon on CNN. When it came to updating our most capable SUV, we made every detail, every curve, every function outshine all. Because that's how you go from great to greater. The all-new Telluride X Pro is ready.
Kia, movement that inspires.
What you do today changes what you need tonight. Maybe you're getting into something, or getting over something, growing, making a comeback, or making it up as you go. Changing days call for changing nights. That's why the new Comfort Mode mattress from Sleep Number adapts to your changing life. Softer or firmer for personalized comfort, night after night. Only at Sleep Number.
I checked Allstate first and saved hundreds on my car insurance. Unfortunately, I did not check just how permanent my body paint was.
Your student body president, Stephen Long.
Checking Allstate first was a great idea. Not checking if the body paint was permanent, not my finest moment. Yeah, check Allstate first. You can save hundreds. Rock chalk.
Spring, the unofficial new year for tool people. A time to start new jobs and tackle new projects with new tools from Harbor Freight. Whether you're a pro or just like doing things yourself, we've got the quality tools and savings to start your new year off right. So come celebrate spring savings at Harbor Freight. Get ready. Unbeatable deals are coming soon at Harbor Freight's parking lot sale.
For the acute treatment of migraine with or without aura in adults, Nurtec ODT can provide relief in 2 hours, which can last up to 2 days. Don't take if allergic to Nurtec ODT. Allergic reactions can occur even days after use. Get help right away for trouble breathing, rash, swelling of face, mouth, tongue, or throat. High blood pressure and Raynaud's syndrome can occur. Get help for high blood pressure, numbness, coolness, pain, or color changes in fingers and toes. Common side effect is nausea. Ask your doctor about Nurtec ODT.
Like when I close my eyes and don't even care if anyone sees me dance. Like I can fly and don't even think touching the ground. Like a heartbeat skip, like an open page, like a one-way trip on an aeroplane. It's the way that I feel when I'm with you.
Learn more about Celebrity Cruises' latest offers.
I didn't think someone like me was at risk of shingles.
The rash couldn't possibly be that painful. And it wouldn't disrupt my life for weeks.
I was wrong. I didn't know that 99% of people over 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate at any time.
I learned that the hard way.
But you don't have to. Talk to your healthcare provider today.
Hey, John Hamm.
Hey, Gare Bear.
You still coming to my dog's birthday party?
I would, but I have to sell my car.
Well, just sell it to Carvana.
Carvana? Huh?
Great offers, 100% online. They'll pick it up. You told me about Carvana.
Did I?
And isn't that your car?
I mean, that could be anybody's car. Okay, fine. I sold it to Carvana. Thank you. Whoa.
So you'll come?
I just sold my car. What, am I going to walk? Sell your car to Carvana today.
The relationship between the FBI director and the president has always been complicated.
Sometimes they're in moments of deep collaboration. At other times, the FBI is investigating the president.
You don't want an FBI to try to destroy a president, but you also don't want a president to destroy the FBI.
No one is above the law in the FBI's eyes.
Standoff, the FBI, Power and Paranoia premieres Sunday, March 22nd on CNN and next day on the CNN app.
We're following the close race in the Democratic primary for Texas Senate. James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett are currently separated by about 85,000 votes. So I want to go to CNN's Jeff Zeleny at Tallarico headquarters. Jeff, how is the Tallarico camp feeling right now?
Well, Laura, it's been a wait and see spirit here for the last couple hours. There was a big celebratory feeling, and then there was a bit of a deflation. But I have just been told a few moments ago that there will be a person on stage speaking here. The light just came on, but it is not going to be James Tallarico. I am told that a Texas state representative who is a surrogate and friend of the Tallarico campaign, Senator John Busey, will be addressing the crowd this evening. It is unclear if he's going to ask supporters to stay. Some of them have been trickling off. One told us as she was leaving, it's past my bedtime. So we are going to hear from a surrogate and supporter of Representative Tallarico here shortly. I've also learned that there's been no communication between Tallarico or Jasmine Crockett. Of course, they've been in a very fiercely competitive race. I'm told their campaigns have also not been communicating this evening. Of course, the Crockett campaign is in Dallas. Tallarico is here in Austin. So all of this sort of leads to the one question: would there be party unity at the end of this bruising primary? It's always a question in primaries. Often there is unity once that goes forward. But look, Democrats are trying to do something that they've not done in a very long time here, and that is flipping a Senate seat blue. So we will be hearing shortly from a top surrogate and supporter of Representative Tallarico, and we'll see what he has to say about the campaign's plans. But they do remain confident about their showing across the state of Texas. But again, they are waiting and watching for more of that election day vote to come in before the race, of course, can be called and before Tallarico to address this crowd. Laura?
Jeff Zeleny, thank you so much. And my panel is back with me. We already heard from Jasmine Crockett earlier in the evening saying that she would not come back on stage tonight.
there is this pending litigation issue with respect to the polls being at first extended 2 hours and then not allowed to have those votes counted if you were not in line by 7 p.m. in the Dallas County Democratic polling places alone. And just for our audience to realize, if this had been a joint primary, the voters could have voted anywhere in the county. Because it was a separate primary between Democrats and Republicans, they had to vote at a particular precinct. That caused confusion, hence triggering all of this litigation in the courts. But talk to me about the fact that if the early voting that so many candidates, particularly these two, were focused on, it didn't seem to pan out the way at least the Crockett camp thought.
It didn't. And then also the Texas Supreme Court litigation should be a warning sign for any Democrat concerned about whether the midterms are going to happen at all, right? Like there's already litigation. They're holding up potential votes. It already shows how election engineering and changing the way polling locations are conducted, how it can affect votes dramatically. So I think all Democrats should not take for granted that we are going to have free and fair elections in November. That means literally making sure that we are holding all of our Secretary of States accountable. It means making sure we have the right lawyers, the right polling places. And it means having our cameras out in every single location to make sure that we're holding people accountable.
TW doesn't buy this.
That's an irresponsible comment. I mean, Texas has had 3 weeks of early voting. They've had no excuse walk-in voting at many remote locations in every urban county. You can vote by mail in Texas by any reason very easily. They've had early voting since 1994, longer than almost any state. It's irresponsible to suggest that this is chicanery.
Donald Trump has already said that he may have to take over elections in November.
I'm suggesting this is irresponsible for you to say this is chicanery.
The one thing I won't do is act like there's a debate between.
Don't say things that are going to tell people things that are not.
If somebody's trying to steal elections or not.
Where is the proof
if people aren't
it has had a dramatic
already
effect? I mean, I'm not
if
clear
people already don't know,
what
all this does is confuse them. I can very easily
I mean, there is no
clear that up for you.
Evidence of that.
I think at the very least, it's led to confusion.
Donald Trump is trying to steal the elections
and voting.
He said it out loud. He said he wants to take over them federally. He's called for gerrymandering, and Texas did it. The Texas Supreme Court got shut down by the National Supreme Court because of their foolishness.
Between confusion on election day that happened in Dallas, as you pointed out rightfully.
Anything that you see going on
jumping
as far as
federalization of elections, which, by the way, Democrats tried to do in 2018.
I'm so tired. I'm sorry. I wish I had better words.
Look, I think that is a massive jump to go from people were confused in Dallas.
The truth is, I'm not going to sit here and debate that with you. Even the debate itself only inspires confusion. There's no reason to be confused about who's trying their darndest to take away elections. And it's the same people who know that the more people vote, the less likely they are to win. It's called the Republican Party. So, I mean, we don't have to go over that with a dead horse.
Michigan, which is a purple state, kind of an uneven Democratic primary right now. Republicans feel kind of confident about what's happening in Michigan. And so, but let's say for argument's sake, Democrats are able to hold on to Michigan. Now we're down to 4. All 4 of these are currently held by Republicans, and Democrats would have to flip these seats. Well, we've already talked about North Carolina. So let's, for argument's sake, say that they can take over North Carolina. And let's even say up in Maine, where Susan Collins is running for re-election, Democrats like their chances there. They have a competitive primary. Graham Plattner, Janet Mills, the governor. That could be an open question, but let's say they take it. This is almost a best case scenario for Democrats under these circumstances. Now we're down to Ohio and Texas. We've talked about how Texas is the great white whale. Let's say they are able to win Ohio because they like their recruit there, Sherrod Brown. We talked about their offseason. Now it all comes down to Texas. Wow. If they can't win Texas, guess what happens? 50-50. If they can't win Ohio, 51-50. So when we go back to that initial map that we talked about, when it was down to those 6 seats, guys, that's where I think it really crystallizes. When you get to that point, I mean, if you'd gotten to the point where we got to those final 6 seats and you told me the Democrats had won all those seats, you thought they'd had a fantastic night. they'd still have to run the table on those other 6 seats in order to take back the majority. That's why it's a huge, heavy lift for Democrats.
Can I ask you 2 questions? How'd that feel at the big board?
Not pretty good.
All right.
I only wish I had khakis. And
Don't let him hear you.
now I understand why you need the khakis, because you got to move around.
Can I ask you? I don't know if we can. I'd love to talk House stuff too. I mean, a Senate what if? I don't know if we have the similar, just a House landscape here, but okay. Garrett, let me bring you back to the table. And Garrett Hake, let me go to you on this, because it's just a fascinating dynamic, and I think it explains too why so much of the fascination, I think, come November is going to be on the House side too.
You know what? And it doesn't even have to wait till November. Ryan and I were talking about this during the break. With all of these House Republicans potentially losing their primaries, Mike Johnson might have to send the U.S. Marshals to go find these people every week to keep them coming back to Washington. I mean, the Republicans could lose their House majority before we get to November. If one House Republican retires, Republicans don't have a majority anymore.
Yeah.
It's that close every day between now and the election.
Just to remind people, we're talking about 3 seats here that Democrats would need to take back control of the House.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they were to win it outright, that's true. But where we stand right now, I mean, they don't even have to do that. Yeah, I mean, look, the math, the history all lines up in the Democratic side here. The redistricting wars, at least on paper, seem to have played out to a roughly even space here. And I think tonight is another reminder that you could redistrict for strategy, but it doesn't necessarily work out the way you think it's going to. The Gonzalez seat was redistricted in a way that was supposed to help Republicans. The Crenshaw seat might be sort of a casualty of that redistricting. He lost part of Houston that I used to be a resident of in a recent redistricting. That's part of the reason he might lose. You might have another, different candidate there. So there are a lot of unknowns for a party that cannot afford any unknowns or any missteps if they want to keep the House.
Sometimes Democrats overreact to the off-year race the year after a presidential race. And we're talking about those for
New Jersey,
race in Virginia and New Jersey and even New York City. But the results were so decisive in New Jersey and Virginia, and the way that Democrats were enthusiastic about those races really gives Democrats the impression that they have the wind at their sails in a way that they haven't in a very long time.
Well, and Ryan, we saw in those races, they reversed some of the gains that President Trump had made.
That's right.
In 2024 with Latino voters, with critical voting.
And with this discussion around, is the coalition that got the president to the White House in 2024 maybe starting to dissolve?
Well, and I think there's so many key questions about what the MAGA coalition looks like for 2 reasons. One, with Donald Trump not at the top of the ticket, which is a huge driver for down ballot Republican races in years that he runs. And also, I always like to say that Donald Trump is kind of the head of this very dispirited groups of different factions, the Maha moms, the anti-interventionists, people all along those different lines. Not all of those issues has Donald Trump been reliable on. The Epstein files. This makes life a lot more difficult for down ballot Republicans.
Well, hey guys, guess what? We got 7 more of these in the next couple of months before the next big one in the middle of May here, when you've got Georgia, Pennsylvania, Oregon,
and the runoff.
We're going to have to be back for that. Lots
Mark
to
off
look
every
ahead
Tuesday.
to. Yeah, that's it. I mean, honestly, final thoughts here. This is the first big night. We got a lot more to go before November.
Garrett, kick us off. Final thought.
I said at the beginning of the night I was interested to see if John Cornyn could bring some energy from Republican voters. I think it's pretty clear that he's done that. He's outperformed expectations. These next couple of weeks will be Shakespearean. These men hate each other. Their consultants hate each other. I mean, you could get really deep into the weeds with the layers of people who want to knife each other, perhaps literally, in that race.
And then my final thought would be, perhaps the stat Democrats will be most excited about is that more Democrats voted tonight in Texas in 2 competitive primaries than Republicans. That doesn't ever happen.
Garrett and Ryan, you were awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us, all of you as well. Our special primary coverage continues with Yasmin Vasugian and a live edition of our podcast, Here's the Scoop. Don't go anywhere. Stay with NBC News Now.
Got to say, 4.5 hours is never enough of Steve Kornacki, and he did not give me the official pass off, but I'm taking the ball anyway. Hey, everybody, welcome to Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Vasugian. This is our live primary election podcast, the first major primary of the midterm season. It is a very big one, and as you all well know, because you have been watching Kornacki.
Okay, so I'm going to be on for another 10 minutes, maybe, and then we'll call it quits unless something amazing and ridiculous happens. and then I'll be here for it. But just letting you know, thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you for watching me surf through the news and give context that's needed. Please help support your independent news people like me who try to be a filter and an honest one, a well-informed one, an experienced one. Anything that you would like to give through super chats, super thanks, stickers, all that good stuff, you can join. You can also go to Patreon. It's all there to help. It's all there to help, man. I'm trying to find some more stuff, but everything kind of seems like everybody's just repeating the same stuff. There's nothing more than I'm giving you. So I'm gonna, oh boy, I'll try CNN one more time because I'm not sure that there's anything I need to hear from this panel of people talking. As a matter of fact, yeah, I'm done with that. We'll do CNN one more time and then we'll call it quits. If I don't see you, thank you very much, and we appreciate it. MS Now is harder to get. So right now I'm about to go to. I meant MS Now, not CNN, but I'm about to go there now. But it's still called MSNBC.
Against Michael Whatley, who won the state's GOP nomination. Whatley is the former chair of the Republican National Committee, an election denier and a staunch Trump ally. And in Texas, the AP projects Republican incumbent Senator John Cornyn and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton will both advance to a runoff on May 26th. On the Democratic side for Texas Senate, the race too early to call at this hour. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is trailing State Representative James Tallarico by about 5 points, with nearly 70% of the estimated voting. And the main reason we don't yet have a declared winner is because of the chaos on the ground. Tonight, the Texas Supreme Court temporarily blocked a ruling from a Dallas County judge that extended voting hours in the county.
Wow.
The judge made that ruling over, quote, mass confusion at some polling places. After voters were turned away and redirected to other precincts. So let's be clear. This is the kind of chaos Trump and his allies are hoping for, sowing doubt about the strength of our election systems. Here's what Congresswoman Crockett said about Dallas County earlier tonight.
We're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do. And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why. So I want you to enjoy yourselves, but I won't be back tonight because I have no idea of when we're going to get results, and I fully anticipate it won't be until tomorrow.
Crockett's opponent, James Tallarico, has yet to address supporters. If he does, as soon as he does, we're going to bring you his speech live. Let's check in first with MS Now's chief data reporter, Ali Velshi, at the big board. What do you got for us, Ali?
You want to do this the easy way or the hard way?
Hard way, always.
All right, then we're starting with the Democrats in Texas. As you said, we're at 72% of the vote right now. The difference here, 52.5% for Tallarico, 46 for Jasmine Crockett. She's sort of underperforming in areas where she would have had to overperform. Those areas are the Rio Grande Valley, where Tallarico has done very well. I'll just give you a few examples right now. In Zapata County, 71% in, 60% to 59% to 33. In Star, 62% to 29 for Tallarico. In Hidalgo, 66 to 30. All that kind of stuff. She's actually done Kennedy County, 48%. Jasmine Crockett has a small lead, but these are tiny numbers. See, 41 votes to 30 votes. Let's go to Williamson County. We've been waiting on this all night. Like Dallas County, there were some delays here, and for most of the night, we had no votes. We now have 58% of the vote in. Again, we don't know whether that's early or day of, because it's not broken out in this county just yet. So Tallarico's got 72% to Jasmine Crockett's 27%. This is in his backyard. He's from Austin. Travis County, which is Austin, look at that, 76 to 23. Just below that in Hays County, 72 to 26. So in the areas that he was expected to perform well, he's performed very well. In her strongholds, including Dallas, 61% of the vote in, and we've been stuck at this number for a while. she's getting 60% to 38%. So you see, she's not overperforming in the places that she was going to overperform. However, in Dallas County, which is going to be her richest source of votes, we're missing so many day of votes because of the confusion you just described, that I think she's hoping that new data that comes in is going to support and narrow her gap.
Welcome to what the elections are going to look like in every Democratic state somewhere in those states, and also Democratic cities and counties in red states. This is what they're doing. They're open and honest about it. There's no more question about it.
District than it is Al Green's, the way it broke down demographically. But with 70% of the vote in, they're separated by 2,500 votes. Menifee is at 48% to Al Green's 43%. There are 3 or 4 examples at least tonight of incumbents who have gone down to defeat by challengers. I wouldn't put this into that category because it was 2 incumbents in a redistricted district, but there are a number of incumbents who have either lost or are losing tonight.
All right, Ali Velshi, thanks so much.
Ali Velshi, don't go far, Ali.
I'm not going anywhere.
To be clear, we're going to be coming back to you.
I'm attached to this place.
All right, you and the vest. We need you to stay. Joining us now is Evan Smith with The Atlantic. Evan, if you've been following our coverage, you've been seeing him. He's been following every legal twist and turn in Dallas County tonight. Evan, where are we at 12:06 p.m. or a.m. Eastern Standard Time?
Well, as it relates to Dallas County, we're kind of where we were an hour ago, 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. We're on hold, right? We have a Supreme Court stay on that last 2 hours where voting was extended.
They're testing cheating or cheating. Just expect it to be underhanded at all times. We are going to watch a little different video. I'm going to let that go. Guys, thank you for being with me. Now let's have some fun before I go. Watch this. It's going to be hilarious. Hilarious.
Coming up on today's program, a scared catch-up visual remix of Dr. Foxotic's viral sensation, I Ran So Far Away.
And I ran so far away. Above them night and day. But this for USA. This is President Trumpito, muy gigante, clusterfuck. You heard that right. Presidente Trumpitos, muy gigante, clusterfuck. With skits and sketches, comedy and fun, and lots of fascism for everyone. So get on a couch, just like JD, and get ready for the best show you'll ever see. Presidente Trumpitos, muy gigante, clusterfuck. Hey!
Hola, mis beautiful deplorablitos and radical left abuelitas. It is I, Presidente Trumpito, the leader of America, Venezuela, soon to be Iran, and maybe Cuba, and Greenland isn't off the table yet either. As some of you may know, I am freshly released from YouTube Carcel Maximo Security Resort and Spa. 2 weeks in cyber jail. Very unfair, very unconstitutional. I was treated worse than a piñata at a Democrat quinceañera. They said I committed cyber bully harassment. Excuse me? I don't even own a cyber truck. Elon tried to give me one for free, but I wouldn't take it because it's a piece of shit death trap on wheels. But we're not here to cry over leche conspildo. We are here to address the camel in the room. People are asking Trumpito why the war in Iran. And let me be claro y cristalino. It is not because I am a puppet on a string for Israel. I am nobody's marionette. I cut my own cuerdas. Snip, snip. Very independent. And it is definitely not to appease the far-right doomsday enthusiasts who believe this war is Armageddon and the return of Jesus riding a bald eagle with a bazooka. No, no, no. And finally, the war in Iran is an absolutely no manera shape or formación, a very expensive, shiny object, distracción from the Epstein archivos. I mean, seriously, would I do that? Okay, don't answer. It is not any of those things on their own. You see, leadership is about multitasking. So what happened while I was unjustamente incarcerated in the YouTube penitentiary for 2 semanas? The short one-word respuesta muchísimo, or as we say in the diplomatics community, a fuck ton. And honestly, the best way to explain these historic acontecimientos is not through boring journalismicals. No, no, no. It is through the most respected academic archive of our time, memes from the internet, because memes are the hieroglyphics of...
This is Scared Ketchup, guys. Back from YouTube jail. Let's watch some more. I just wanted you to know what it was.
Modern civilization, very cultural. So let us take a look together, like anthropologists studying the ancient ruins of Tiktokia. First up, the Winter Olympiadas occurred. Cold, icy, very brr. And let me tell you, there was no escasez of memes.
In you go, pedo protector.
Zero shortage. A surplus buffet of digital tomfoolery.
And there's Trump waiting his turn. He looks a bit nervous. Yeah, let's hope he doesn't shit himself. Look at that form. Truly inspiring athleticism. He's flying down the track at incredible speed. And he's off. Look at that trail of mud. What a shitstorm. He's really plowing through it. He's hauling ass, and that mud trail is massive. This is incredible. The shit is really flying now. And he's off a massive mud trail from the back. It's splashing the spectators. They're covered in it. They're falling on the track covered in shit. Holy shit, he's at the finish. Oh shit, he's crashing. Mud explosion.
In addition to the Olympics, I also announced that I would be releasing classified information about the existence of extraterrestrials. And of course, someone had to make a meme to commemorate this historic announcement.
You got punched in the face by the Fresh Prince.
Tonight, history was made on the White House lawn as humanity made first contact with extraterrestrial life.
His name is Zorg. He is an extra cholesterol.
President sat down for what was meant to be a historic, peaceful exchange, but quickly realized
he's here just to fuck with me.
I got you, Elko, coming.
Who sent you, Putin? China? I saw the documentary, Independence Day.
And in other fun meme-related noticias, Mi Beautiful Esposa Melanoma has become a major motion picture star. Huge, big screen, wide angle, surround sondido. And now the Internado cannot stop celebrating her newly found cinematographical famosity.
it's nice.
So, who can give me a green card?
I can. I'm going to marry you. And finally, finalmente, but never finito and glorious honorificación of my head of Homeland Seguridad, Kristi Noem, being grilled to a crispy churrasco in front of El Congreso today. Please enjoy this pequeño meme diddycito.
In the stagnant swamp of American politics lurks a particularly vile specimen, the Prostituta ornithocelis, more commonly known as the bird-legged hoe. Observe its grotesque avian-like appendages. These bird legs are the hoe's most revolting feature, perfectly evolved for strutting through moral filth while maintaining a delicate balance on its own hollow principles. The bird-legged hoe employs pathetic cosplay-like camouflaging techniques to infiltrate various ecosystems. The border cowboy is a laughably unconvincing disguise typically used when the hoe approaches the southern border, looking like a cheap rodeo clown on horseback. Its most tragic camouflage, the ice barbie, is deployed when the creature attempts to blend in with a feral pack of incels known as ICE agents, a sad spectacle of a desperate attention seeker playing dress-up with tactical gear it couldn't properly operate if its life depended on it.
Oh, beautiful.
The bird-legged hoe possesses an extraordinary ability to spew bald-faced lies. Behavior biologists call compulsive bullshitting, a skill so refined it could make Satan himself blush with envy.
All right, folks, before we close with Scared Ketchup's visual remix of...
All right, I'm going to let that go. You guys go to Scared Catch Up, man. Check that out. I got something else coming to you that's very important. We've got one of the Hitler Youth's best friends getting arrested, and that should make everybody's night better.
Yeah, baby! I'm not resisting.
I'm not resisting.
There you go, Stump.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. We were being threatened.
Thank you for your service. All right, and one more. Got one more coming to you by way of Eljo once again. But I don't see it here. Let's see. Maybe put it in a different place. One more coming to you by way of Eljo here. Yeah, I guess this is Zach X. Is it? Let's see. This is that bum who just got arrested, maybe. This should be equally as cathartic. Enjoy, my friends.
Masculine energy. I smell it. Okay. What's up with all the female masculine energy? I smell it. Why? Why is that the in thing these days? Hey, Maida.
Boom.
Record video.
Oh, record video. Oh.
No.
Keep it recording.
Get your fucking hands off me. Get your fucking hands off me.
Oh, beautiful.
What the fuck is this?
Oh, beautiful.
What am I doing?
You know what you're doing.
Okay. What's up with all the female masculine energy?
One more time.
It. Why? Why is that the in thing these days? Hey, Maida. Record video. No. Get your fucking hands off me. Get your fucking hands off me. What the fuck is this? What am I doing?
All right, guys. With that, we'll call it a day. Let me get up off here and just tell you all, thank you so much. Have a good one. If you want to last minute donate, you can right now. And I appreciate you being here with me. A lot more stuff to do. The fight goes on, and I'm here for it. I am here for it. Peace out, guys. Have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow. Oh, yeah, go to Closer to the Edge podcast. That's where we interviewed Chelsea Gods, and it is wow. Matter of fact, I'll do this. I'll do one thing for you. You absolutely need to see. This is the snippet. If you want to know what it's going to look like tomorrow at 7 o'clock on the Post, on the interview we had. Check this. Oh, don't go anywhere yet. You need to see this.
Absolutely. I want the MAGA to shut the fuck up. I want them to feel afraid to speak in public again. I want them, when they open their racist, stupid fucking faces, to know that I'm going to shut them right the fuck up, and I'm going to make them feel bad about themselves. I want them to know how much I fucking hate them. I've stood in front of the MAGA and made fun of their micro penises to their face, and I don't feel bad doing it, because all these people are a complete stain on humanity, and they have not only destroyed the country, they've destroyed the entire world. We have let them talk for way too fucking long. We have taken them seriously for way too fucking long. I don't care what the MAGA have to say to me. In fact, one of the things that I have a huge problem with people on the left is that they want to sit there and have a debate with these people. What are you going to debate? The fact that they support a pedophile? Shut the fuck up. We're not debating them anymore. There's nothing to debate. In fact, on the occasions where I've had the unfortunate circumstance of talking to people on the right, what I intend to do to them is I don't let them get an inch in the conversation. I completely dominate the conversation. And when they try and say something fucking stupid, I talk right the fuck over them and bring it right back to me. I had a conversation back in December outside of Turning Point USA's AmFest with Nick Shirley and Caitlin Bennett. That's right. Chelsea God's got double teamed by Nick Shirley and Caitlin Bennett. And she tried to, she's
also going to be on Saturday at 7:00 on the Sons of Liberty live channel. Sons of Liberty channel live with Big Sarge. Maybe I'll be there. I'm not sure yet, but hey, it's going to be dope.
And she tried to move the conversation. And I went, I'm sorry, why do you think you get to dominate the conversation? You came over to talk to me, not the other way around.
Right. Thank you.
Like, excuse me. No, we will not be doing that. Like, I will be owning you in this conversation. I don't care what the MAGA have to say to me. And the only reason why I let those two fools double team me with protection.
Oh, okay.
The only reason why I let those two fools. Yeah, I did. The only reason why I let those two fools talk to me in the first place is because I feel like my message is important to get out there. And I knew that they were going to amplify my voice as opposed to me doing the opposite, because I knew that I was going to dominate them in that conversation. I think that the way that we got to where we are now is that we sat in quiet complacency with these people who should never have had a voice in the first place. And now the only way of getting out of it is through loud defiance. And I do believe that the things that I do show that loud defiance works, that it's very effective, that if we're loud and we're like shutting them down, that they do shut the fuck up, and that it actually is. It does work. So I like Jasmine Crockett a lot. I want to say that. I'm really sad about her getting gerrymandered, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I like the way she shuts them right the fuck up. I don't want people to try and find decorum anymore. I don't think that we're at a place where we have decorum. We're up against literal fucking Nazis who hid the fact that they were all fucking kids.
I don't understand why anybody wouldn't understand that. It seems to me that you're doing the Lord's work. Seems to me.
Yeah, I'm doing Chelsea God's work.
And with that, I bid you all a great night. I will see you tomorrow. Back at it again in the fight. The time to fight is now.